medication and it can't be taken care of through traditional methods, we find that the cerebellum is the key to this vertigo. And we've got different therapies called brain-based therapy in order to help this cerebellum. Now, once again, we talked about blood sugar in the past. Blood sugar is one of the reasons why the cerebellum goes bad. Okay? The brain hates blood sugar fluctuations. So by controlling your blood sugar, that one thing alone can help with your vertigo. Okay? The other thing is, you got to watch the bottoms of your feet. If you can't feel the bottoms of your feet, you're not going to be able to know where you're walking, and the likelihood is you're going to have a fall. So this vertigo can come from a number of different ways. But get your blood sugar checked out, get your feet checked out, make sure you can feel your feet. If those two things are in check, then we're talking about a central problem, and perhaps we can help you with that problem by getting your brain checked out and look for the functionality of your brain.
We'll be back later to continue this discussion with AIDS Project Los Angeles. But right now, I'd like to acquaint you with some city services that can be quite helpful. The message now is from the Department of Sanitation.
I am Nashid Kakarala with the City of Los Angeles Bureau of Sanitation Citywide Recycling Division. Today, I will talk about sharps and how to properly dispose of sharps. Sharps can be needles, lancets, other such devices the residents use at in-home settings to either self-administer medications or to monitor their health. So if residents who use sharps are encouraged to use what are called sharps containers. A sharps container is one, it's puncture resistant, it's rigid, and it can be tightly sealed. See, once you seal it up, sharps don't come out of there. We have these at Department of Rec and Park senior centers, at pharmacies, and other participating locations. So a resident would come into the senior center and take a sharps container home, put their sharps in there. So once the sharps container is full, the resident would bring their tightly sealed sharps container to a drop box that looks something like this. They would get the key from the center and open it up and drop it in there. For more information, seniors can go to our website, www.lacitisan.org. That is LACITYSAN.org. Or call our 1-800 number, 1-800-98-TOXIC, 98TOXIC. Thank you.
That is great news from the Department of Sanitation. And now it's time to hear from Brenda Barnett from the Department of Animal Services.
What I'd like you to know, if you're going to adopt an animal from Los Angeles Animal Services, is that that companion animal is going to be spayed or neutered before you take her home, or him home. We're also will have given the vaccines that are appropriate up to that age. So you'll come with an animal, and you'll get a free vet certificate to go for a vet check with one of our local licensed veterinarians to make sure everything is A-OK with your companion animal. So those things are all included. Also for seniors, there are fee reductions for seniors who have income levels that qualify. So there's a number that's rolling across your screen, and that's the number that you call to find out more of the details. We have reduced adoption fees. In some circumstances, you can even get a free dog license. So call us, come on down. We've got love just waiting for you.
Hold on, we'll be right back.
Really like
an emergency can happen at any time.
Earthquake!
That's why you need to be prepared. Put together an emergency kit with food, water, a first aid kit, a flashlight, radio, and some tools.
I can't believe it, it's an earthquake!
You're never too old to prepare.
Ah, get out of there!
Get the message? Be prepared.
Get out of the house!
You think it can't happen to someone like you?
Are you crazy? It could happen to anyone.
Knowing can save your life.
Or the life of someone you love.
Hey, it's free. It's painless and easy.
Don't be scared. Just get tested.
Know for sure. Get an HIV test now.
Welcome back to Aging in LA. Today we're at the offices of the AIDS Project Los Angeles headquarters, and our next guest, I think you'll enjoy talking with her, is Sherry Dunn.
Yes.
Dunn with double N's.
Double N.
Thank you so much for making time to come in and talk to us. Now, what is your role here at APLA?
I'm a nurse case manager. I go out to see people in the community anywhere in Los Angeles County to see those persons who need case management, who are primarily homebound, who need to be connected with services in LA County.
Right. Oh, boy. And that can mean anything, from transportation to
housing to attendant care, mental health services,
Sure.
working with various departments throughout LA County.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now, what is your reception? Some people are so reluctant to seek help, yet by the time you've come in, they've asked for your help, right?
Well, sometimes it's very difficult for people to receive strangers into their homes. Sometimes it's very difficult to admit that you need help and that you're allowing someone to come in and assess your medical status, your psychosocial status, and to refer you to various resources. A lot of people like to do things on their own, and and that's great, but there are times when someone is at the point where they can't do it by themselves. They really don't know how to access some of the resources in LA County because the phone trees are very difficult to negotiate, and they don't know how to access these things.
Right, and that's assuming that they have admitted to themselves, I have a problem.
Right.
Like, there's too many people that just, they don't pick up the phone, and yet here APLA is right here for people, and we'll listen, and you and the team are vastly experienced. I mean, nobody's going to throw a surprise at you at this point, I hope.
No, I don't think so.
It's amazing how this drama, HIV/AIDS, has played out over the way people were treated as if they were lepers.
Right.
And then there was sort of an awakening within the culture and acceptance and great medical advances.
Mm-hmm.
And these medical advances, just to get to the right point, has meant that many people are living longer with AIDS.
Right. And with living with AIDS also comes the usual diseases that come with aging.
Yes.
Such as diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancers, a myriad of diseases. So not only do we manage people who have HIV and AIDS, but also the comorbidities that come along with that, because some of them are highly related, in addition to things such as hepatitis B and C.
Sure. Well, that has stalked the community for ages. And those darn dirty needles. Oh, my God. How about drug use among seniors living with AIDS? I mean, they're on so many meds anyway. Is that a particular issue that you need to address sometimes, to say, I think you need to talk to someone?
Well, I think that in any segment of the population, there are people who use drugs.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter if we're talking about an adolescent to young adult to seniors. It happens. So yes, it's true, because some of our seniors have lived through the primary epidemic, and they were doing drugs all along the way, and they're still doing them.
Yes, that's true enough. How about the volunteer base? Are you finding that the seniors are willing to share their stories and their history to the younger gay community?
Well, I would have to say that a lot of the seniors that I see are pretty much homebound, so they don't get out too much. It's very difficult for them to negotiate traffic, and transportation resources are limited in LA County. I think that some of the criteria to access some of the access services, for instance, make it very difficult for some of our seniors to be able to get around. And frankly, I'm not really sure that the younger population learns from the older ones.
It is amazing. I joked with you earlier that it seems every 5 years you have to repeat the message all over again.
And I think with the advent of the medications, people began to live longer, but there was also a concern that some of the younger guys that were coming through the epidemic thought that all they had to do was take the meds and everything would be just fine.
Yeah, and not modify their behavior.
And not modify their behavior. And the thing is they didn't really see their friends die of HIV or AIDS related illnesses, and so they just thought somehow that wasn't going to happen to them.
Well, yes, we all believe we're immortal when we're young, that's for sure. But when you're facing a knee replacement, now how is this going to work with the drugs that I'm already taking?
Yeah.
Is that the kind of stuff you see now?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Sure.
We see all sorts of different problems with people trying to negotiate diabetic-related issues and loss of sight, along with their HIV, the needs to take their meds. How can you take your meds if you can't really see the meds that you're taking?
And I'm sure that sense of being overwhelmed is profound, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
But the good news, as you've shared with us, is that help is available.
Right.
And you're exactly the kind of person that can knock on the door and say, hello, I'm Sherry.
Well, the interesting thing is that with the senior population, we have to engage them in a way so that they feel safe with us. And I think that having case managers who have a great deal of experience, working in the home and with this population helps them to be at ease.
Well, I can see why. Sherry, thank you so much for taking time to share with us.
No problem. Thank you.
We'll be right back. And now it is time for Caregiver's Corner.
As a family caregiver, good communication is very important. It's important that you say and hear what each other have to say, whether it's the family, whether it's the care receiver, or even the professionals that you're working with when you're dealing with doctors and other providers of programs and services. So one of the more important things to do is remember that when you're communicating, that you talk in a way that you will be heard instead of shut down. If you're complaining and whining, people tend to tune that out. But it's more important that you just convey what you need. Also, it's very important to remember the difference between what we call you messages and I messages. If the message says something more like, you're always late, that sounds blaming and starting a fight. But if you say something like, I need to be on time, or I really like to be on time, that's more of what your needs are. If you say things like, you never listen to me, versus, I need to be heard, this is what I have to say, it just changes the whole tone of the conversation. So it reminds you of the importance of communicating effectively without blaming and without being turned off. When you communicate effectively, it helps to also build relationships. Why? Because everyone feels that they're having a chance to say what's on their minds. It's important that everyone communicate. Building relationships will make it very successful in order to be a better caregiver, not only for the care receiver, but for the entire family. It also will make you feel better because you feel you're being heard. It releases stress and makes sure that things don't get overwhelming. So practice using I messages rather than you messages so that everyone can thrive.
Time for Seniors on Aging. Today the question is, what's it like growing old in Los Angeles?
My name is Ignacio Garay. Getting old in Los Angeles and getting old anywhere is the same. You got to take it one day at a time. You have to not worry about everything and just be yourself and be good to others and treat others the way you wish to be treated. You can't be nasty one day and nice another. Life is a circle, and what you do will come back and bite you in the behind. So you have to treat life like it is something special, something to cherish. You wish it would go on, but sometimes the door closes. Take it one day at a time. Just take it as it comes. And, it'll come back the way it should be. I mean, I'm 70 years old now. I didn't expect to get over 30. So that's the way it is. I'm retired, and that's a whole ball of wax. That's it.
That's all the time we have for today's show. I want to thank the people of AIDS Project Los Angeles for opening their headquarters to us, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Some good information. From all of us at the Department of Aging, I'm Paul Peterson saying, see you next time.
Hi, I'm Renee, representing for Juventus from Van Nuys. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the last day of May. It's Tuesday, May 31st, 2011. We're here in the John Ferraro Council Chamber, room 340 of City Hall, where we meet every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. I hope everybody had a good Memorial Day, and we thank all of our men and women that are in our armed forces and serving our country proudly. And we remember those who are no longer with us, and hope that folks were able to take some time to commemorate that yesterday. I know throughout the city we had a number of wonderful events from Boyle Heights to Forest Lawn to Canoga Park to Highland Park to South LA and beyond San Pedro. We have 9 members of the council here at 10:05. Thank you everybody for your promptness. Council members Cardenas, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, and Zine are here. We do not expect Ms. Hahn or Mr. Rosendahl today, so if Mr. Huizar, Mr. Koretz, and Mr. Wesson will join us, we do have a quorum with Mr. Smith's arrival. So with that, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Hahn, Huizar, Koretz, Krikorian, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr.
All right, first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Reyes moves and Mr. Parks seconds. Without objection, those will be approved. Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions.
All right, and Mr. Cardenas moves, Mr. Krikorian seconds. Without objection, those will be approved as well. It is Tuesday, and we usually have a salute to the flag. If I can ask Mr. Zine to lead us and ask everybody to rise for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Place your hand over your heart. Ready to begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. If I can draw everyone's attention to the council agenda, we'll now run through items in today's agenda. They are split into items for which they have already had public hearings and those for which public hearings have not yet been held. It requires 10 members on some of the items to be considered, but any of the items for which there have not yet been public hearings, cards from the public will automatically trigger. There are cards in the back of the room, and also in Van Nuys and San Pedro are 2 remote city council locations if that's closer to where you live. We also have general public comment if you'd like to fill out cards. If we can go through the first items, please.
Items 1 and 2 are ordinances noticed for public hearing, and there are cards on both items.
Okay, we'll call both 1 and 2 special for cards from the public. Next items.
Items 3 and 4 are Department of Building and Safety liens notice for public hearing, and there are cards on item number 3.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call 3 special. And item number 4 we have before us as well. Let's hold that on the desk for a moment too. If we go to the next items. Next items, please, and if we can put Mr. Koretz in for the votes.
Items 5 through 8 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay. Anybody wishing to call items 5 through 8 special, please? 5 through 8. Yes, Mr. Koretz?
I'd like to call item 5 special.
All right, 5 for Mr. Koretz. 6 through 8, anybody? If not, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on items 6 through 8 and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Items 9 through 18 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes required for consideration. There's a request to refer item 14 back to the Information Technology and Governmental Affairs Committee.
Okay, is there any objection to referring 14 back? If not, let's refer that back to Information Technology. And we have card on number 10 as well. We'll call that special for cards in the public. We'll close the other public hearings. Any specials 9 through 18, colleagues? 9 through 18. 9 for Mr. Alarcon. Any other specials? If not, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on 11 through 13 and 15 through 18 and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
All right, those are approved. Next items, please.
Mr. President?
Yes.
We
Mr.
have
Parks?
11 and 12 forthwith.
Yes, without objection, we'll send 11 and 12 forthwith. Next items, please.
On the supplemental agenda, item 19 is the mayor's veto message. Nothing has been received from the mayor and no action is required.
Okay, no action required. That will continue on to next agenda. Again, that is just standard after our budgets to have a mayor's veto message should one be received, and that needs to be agendized for 5 days. We're 2 days, I believe, into that. Next items are 20 through 22, and we do have cards on 21 and 22. Anybody wishing to call 20 special? Yes, Mr. Cardenas?
20 and 21 for Huizar.
Okay. We'll call those special.
22?
Yep. and 22, Mr. Reyes.
Forthwith.
All right, we'll send 13 forthwith. Thank you, Mr. Labange. That'll take us to our general public comment. This is for items that are not on today's agenda, but nevertheless under the jurisdiction of the City of Los Angeles. Dr. Clyde Williams is our first speaker. After Dr. Williams will be Daniel Wright.
Dr. Clyde Williams, LA 32 Neighborhood Council, El Sereno. We're very happy that coming on Sunday will be Loomis Day. There are pamphlets being circulated right now regarding Loomis Day. It's one of our Northeast LA heritages. He was part of us. And what we're trying to do is continue his ancestry, his prophecy, his approach to all of Northeast LA, bringing us together. So we would highly recommend that anyone who can spare the time come to Loomis Day on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Daniel Wright is our next speaker. After that will be Arnold Sachs. Good morning.
Good morning, members of council. I'm not here to talk about item number 21, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but I do want to focus on an issue more generally that's raised by item 21, which is this, the status of the city's early notification system, which unfortunately in some cases lately has been neither early nor constitute notice. I think that the council, as a result of this incident, needs to look more broadly at ways in which you can protect and make sure that persons who register their email address on your early notification system for your commissions cannot have their email addresses deleted or removed by a commission or a board in order to deny them their First Amendment rights under the Constitution. The issue that you'll hear about on 21 today focuses on that issue, but the problem is not just at Rec and Parks. It's happening in other commissions as well. We've observed this in terms of how oftentimes Brown Act agendas get posted at the physical posting location for the appropriate period of time, but the email sending the notice out does not occur until, like, say, 24 hours before the meeting, or even less. And that's a concern because it's supposed to be an early notification system, and that doesn't seem to be working very well. So we certainly would encourage that there needs to be a more broad-based look at this problem and corrective action taken. The city council itself and the clerk seems to be able to get these email notifications out in a fairly timely manner right after an agenda is posted. Why is that not true of our boards and commissions? Thank you.
Thank you. Arnold Sachs is our next speaker. After that will be Daniel Gus. Good morning.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Welcome back from Memorial Day weekend. I know I've touched a few times, and again, I'd like to thank Councilman Alarcon for being a little bit open-minded regarding this gold card fiasco. And last week he mentioned that it was on a piece of, was on an item on the agenda for the Transportation Committee back in 2007. So I'm wondering why that isn't being audited back to 2007 at least. But while I was looking through some papers I found this item from 2009. Consideration of a motion. This is report number 092717. Consideration of a motion, Garcetti, Hahn, and Reyes, Hahn for Reyes, relative to establishing an administrative and regulatory scheme that is both constitutional and consistent in connection with billboards to ensure that all applicants are treated alike. 2009, when you have this gold card baloney floating around, the gold card standard of open and transparency. I'd like to switch gears again for a second and talk about the budget and the successful concessions made by everybody. But you know what? What about the DWP family? I didn't hear any concessions made by DWP. As a matter of fact, I have millions in DWP cuts announced from April 6, 2011. The head of the agency said that he would be able to cut that much money in the next 3 years. But you know what's missing from this article? The transfer. The last transfer, again, made in February of this year, while last year's budget had 3 transfers. So who changed the ordinance that allowed only 1 transfer? And again, the mayor's looking for money. You're looking for money. I mentioned again, $63.5 million going into next fiscal year. How come? And again, where is the transfer amount?
Thank you, sir. Daniel Gus is our next speaker. After that will be Charles Fisher.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Daniel Gus from the Stand Foundation. I hope the viewers will go to Facebook and like the Stand Foundation to keep abreast of problems in the city shelters. The city's animal shelter website is a mess right now. Brenda Barnett decided to refurbish the website and go live with spelling errors, grammatical errors, ridiculous branding errors, and those are the little things. She has squandered time on creating a new logo for absolutely no reason. She has dismantled the search feature so that if Mr. Labange loses his dog or Miss Hahn wants to find a cat, they can't go to the North Central Shelter or the Harbor Shelter. They have to search the West Valley Shelter in Zion and Smith's district. They have to search the South LA Shelter in Mr. Park's district. There's no reason for Ms. Barnett to have dismantled the search feature. It's going to cost the city money. It's going to mean more deaths. It's going to mean people can't find their lost animals. And it means that there is going to hinder adoption because you can't go to your local shelter and see what's available. More troubling, and I had warned about this before Ms. Barnett got the job. She is now driving traffic to a for-profit American Kennel Club website where she's telling people on the city's website, which I believe is against city policy, she's saying, check out what the AKC says about this breed or that breed so you can decide if you want a mutt from the city shelters or a pure breed. I believe it's against city policy, but you know that if Ms. Barnett, well, it might not be, but if she's driving traffic away from the city shelter website, you know 100% of that traffic's not going to come back. Her job is to get these animals adopted, not tell the public about alternatives to adoption through for-profit breeders. Please look into it and get that search feature back. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Fisher is next. After that is Armanak Norajanian.
Good morning. A follow-up on that real quick. We have a dog that's an escape artist, and that search feature helped us several times to find her quickly when she was picked up. So hopefully that'll be brought back. What I'm talking about today, though, is an incident, and Jose, I don't know if you're even aware of this yet because it happened so quickly over the weekend, but you are aware of the property in Garbanza at the corner of Crescent and Avenue 66. This is a property where a developer purchased the land a few years back with the intent to tear down 2 historic homes and build a 7-unit condominium project. He applied in 2006 for permits to build the new building and to grade the property. He never applied for demolition permits on that particular property. He was later told at a hearing that he was going to have to produce an EIR because one of the houses had been flagged in a 1990 survey as a historic structure potentially eligible for a National Register district along Avenue 66, which has not materialized. But since then, the area has become part of the Highland Park Garbanza HPOZ. Over the weekend, the owner started, or his people started cleaning up the yard and taking out mature trees, which are protected under the HPOZ ordinance. Then on Sunday, they came in and started to cut away at an ancient oak tree that's on the site that's protected under the California oak tree ordinance. This is a very big problem. This guy obviously doesn't seem to care about the rules. He had been cited for too much brush on his property, so his response was to take out everything, including mature trees. As a board member on the HPOZ, I have a real problem with this, and I just want to make sure that the city is aware that this is going on, so that he can't say this has been in a vacuum. He is well aware of what he is doing. We know that. He cannot claim that he didn't know. And thank you. And I think Tina Galata is probably going to say a few more things.
Thank you. Armanak Norajanian is our next speaker, and then Tina Galota Miller.
Hi, good morning. Respectable City Council members, dear fellow engineers, my name is Armen Akhmedjian. As a Liberal Democrat and human rights advocate, I run for the seat of California State Assembly for the next year elections. I promise to raise taxes against wealthy individuals and rich oil and gasoline selling corporations 50% in order to remedy budget deficit in California, create more jobs with government orders. I propose to create California satellite cell phone service for rural and forested areas and territorial waters of California shores. I will create state legislation to control car jams with live satellite surveillance in order to disperse car jams on California freeways. I ask all progressive and liberally-minded California Patriots Union members to support my liberal candidacy with general donations for my electoral campaign by calling my cellular number 323-445-1600 and contribute funds to support the liberal movement. I would appreciate if Los Angeles City Council members buy my 17 paintings that reflect California modern life in order to support Los Angeles art. I also promise to make same-sex marriage law of the land to uphold the civil rights of sexual minorities. As 56% of California voters rejected Proposition 19 legalization of harmful narcotic marijuana last November, I will craft a legislation to close down what so-called medical marijuana shops that rip off their clients and charge gross sums of money for an ounce of illegal dope. I also propose amnesty for law-abiding California ex-convict, ex-felon after 5 years of legitimate existence with proof of legal income so they could buy guns. As part of my campaign to fight wasteful spending, narco-mafia and corruption, I condemn overrated Los Angeles Council members' wages of $178,000 a year and demand cutting those gross wages in half. For instance, Councilmember Bernard Park has 3 field deputy and legislative deputy who do nothing except wasting taxpayers' money and loafing around. Eliminate those field deputy senior sinecures and give those savings bonds to city workers. The slogan of American Revolution is oust corrupt officials, so I'll petition federal authorities to indict city officials for sanctioning and protecting illegal marijuana trade.
Thank you, sir. Tina Galota Miller is our next speaker. After that is Donna Pearman in Van Nuys. Good morning.
My name is Tina Galata Miller, 6433 Crescent Street, Los Angeles, a resident of Highland Park. I've had the past experience, or recent experience, of enforcement for the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone on a property where the police authorities were not aware of the oak tree ordinance, nor the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone guidelines. And I was asked to produce the law or the ordinance to enforce it when the police showed up. I would like to maybe close that gap with the authorities so that the community can go ahead and press for this issue to be enforced, as the property owner was about to cut down a 220-year-old oak tree that was part of the Garvanza settlement before Garvanza was annexed to the city of Los Angeles. So that's what I'm asking for the council and possibly from the Office of Historic Resources and from the Planning Department to try to educate and inform the police department of the ordinance and of the Preservation Overlay Zone guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. Our next speaker is Donna Pearman in Van Nuys. We'll come back and Phyllis Doherty will follow. Good morning.
After I'm done. Please apologize, Miriam's going to put something over her head. I forgot her hat. And she doesn't have a scarf. Anyway, okay, she doesn't feel like showing her hair. Anyway, I'm sorry if I gave people the impression that the city council sacrificed. The city council only cares about taking for themselves. It's not a sacrifice. They benefited. It's not a sacrifice. It's a lie. They benefit it's like a pay hike. The unions had to give up plenty to give up the retirement health care. We'll bring it up every time. 2 unions couldn't sacrifice too many conditions placed before them. No conditions was signed before the city council. Public servants gave up a lot, so city council will spend to house the homeless in Hollywood. Mr. Garcetti wants to end homelessness by the year 2018 with CRA's help, of course. Mr. Garcetti is not realistic. Second, private industry wants to get rid of unions, and some of the public, I think, wants to do. They did get rid of the unions, some. Anyway, some of the public wants the city to do the same, I think. In private industry, many employees have to fend for themselves with the pensions, no pensions, no health care, no sick leave, many don't stay. See very little stay for a career. Many do in the city, only if you make it worthwhile. Better for the city to have career employees. It's the American dream. City employees want to give back to the city. They have in their past and will in the future if obstacles aren't put in the way. The contract isn't fair the way.
The obstacles are put in the way is not good.
The obstacles are put in the way is not good, and the contract isn't fair. They use blackmail. The city mayor used blackmail and extortion to get to his point. The council and mayor doesn't act in good faith. It's all about revenue from city employees while the council still overspends, like spending on a credit card while paying it off. It won't work. City council has to stop spending on CRA and pet projects that make them look good. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Phyllis Doherty is our next speaker. After that will be Miriam Fogler. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad that Phyllis Doherty of Animal Issues. I'm glad Mr. Gus was here. We did not plan this. I do want to show you this picture of Miss Barnett receiving an award at a Kennel Club show for this dog on March of 2010, which is after the final selection interviews for this job in the city. So when he says she's a breeder, he's telling you the truth, and here it is all over the internet. I'm reading this. It's going to Trutanich and to Mr. Garcetti, and there's private counsel involved. He asked me to read this to you. LA Animal Services website. The Department of Animal Services has launched a new website, www.laanimalservices.com, which, without notifications, directs those who attempt to find a lost pet to pet registration page, which is not identified as belonging to a private company and which solicits them to purchase 500 postcards for $399, up to 3,000 postcards for $1,299. I researched and found out that this is HLP Company, which is incorporation. I'll tell you about that. This is no excuse for the most vulnerable visitors to a government website being subjected to a sales offer which has proven to help you find your pet. The site acknowledges that it depends upon email responses from shelters to locate impounded pets, but no LA City shelter has provided its email address according to their box on the site. As a member of the public who's attended every Animal Services Commission, reviewed all agendas, I'm asking to be advised as to how this arrangement with a private contractor was approved without issuance of an RFP, and what percentages of monies are being collected from HLP by Los Angeles City to get this for access personal information from Los Angeles pet owners. This pet registration form demands that all of your information on yourself and your pet be included. You cannot get off the page and go back. In order to revert to find your pet, you have to go off the site. Also, Ms. Barnett, I'll tell you the rest later. I'll leave these for you.
Thank you. We'll make sure when the Sergeants at Arms can get that from you. We'll make sure they get them from you. Miriam Fogler is our last speaker in Van Nuys. Good morning.
Yeah, I want to let you know that we're going to just have a right to vote on the retirement health care, and you can't put obstacles on that ballot because there are people out there that don't trust you anymore, that you don't follow the laws. And, you know, any laws that you pass can be repealed. All these laws can be rescinded. So if you think that you're going to get away with it and you think you're going to disband the unions here, you got another thing coming because we're ready for you. We're ready for you think you're going to get away with this? We have a constitution in this country. We have rights. We should have rights than you. You are supposed to serve us. We're not supposed to serve you. So you, by voting yourselves to retirement health care, you're mandated by law that the rest of us should be entitled to it. So you cannot deny us that right and then put barriers that I can't get votes to pass it. So I expect that that's going to be a very easy one to pass in the next few months. So don't getting any ideas of getting concessions because that's the idea is that we're paying a contribution of 4% for our retirement health care, and you can't deny that, just like you're not denying yourselves it. So I'm just putting right here on record that you can't get away with it and think that you're going to be the special privileged ones to get it, and we don't. Because after all, Rosendahl said everybody should have health care. So you can't deny it because Rosendahl said it. And since he's not the only, he shouldn't be the only one. Like that Zion says, all of you are going to have to conform to these rules, that everybody's entitled to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Our last speaker is Mr. Robinson. I'd like to come forward.
Thank you, sir. I know I'm late.
That's all right. Good to see you.
My watch is not reliable. The Honorable President, members of Council, Ms. Fogler has been observing for years. She's a protege of Mr. Shapiro. Leonard is a firebrand. He was a city councilman, supervisor in New York. Leonard Shapiro, we all know. The hyperbole you heard is a bit much. It stems, obviously, from a lot of anger, childhood. But you are an honorable group. You are a hard-working group. You're not to let, and pardon me for digressing, I think it was one of our founding fathers who said, I might not agree with what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. I think it was Nathan Hale. So I hope that you're not left with the impression that she would inadvertently convey that you're not the highly professional, unique city council that Los Angeles has been gifted with. Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robinson. Appreciate your comments. We had sent item 14 back to committee, but I know there were some speaker cards here that will open up for a minute per speaker. Thank you all for taking time to be here. Julius Levy is our first speaker, and Joe Solomon will be the second. And after that will be Rupert Stain. If you'd like to come forward at this time, and we'd be happy to hear from each of the speakers on number 14. Good morning.
Good morning, Council. My name is Julius Levy. I have been a police officer at LAX for about 21 years. I'm also a member of Los Angeles Airport Peace Officers Association. I, along with a few of my fellow co-workers, are here today to not only speak out about this resolution and the message it sends to sworn men and women who place their lives on the line every day to ensure safety at our airports, i.e. Tommy Scott, but to also ensure that Council understands the importance of AB 1377 and how it enhances public safety. Simply put, AB 1377 does one thing, and that is to fulfill the recommendation by Post to reclassify the LA Airports Police from Penal Code 830.33D to 830.1. Through this reclassification, the airport police are given additional authorities deemed necessary as the airport's first line of defense in preventing or responding to terrorist attacks.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate your comments. Joe Solomon, and then Rupert Stain.
Good morning, Council members. My name is Joe Solomon. I've been an airport police officer for 11 years now. This morning, I'd like to submit for the record the extensive study and recommendations made by the Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training to grant the airport police the 830.1 status. In 2005, Post conducted an intense study and recommended 830.1 status for airport police. Although Post has received requests by various law enforcement agencies throughout the state for similar reclassification, it has only recommended a change to 830.1 3 times. That was for the Los Angeles Port Police, San Diego Airport and Harbor Police, and the Airport Police. Of the 3 recommendations, the only one left unfulfilled is the one for the Airport Police. I'd also like to submit the 2006 memo given to the LA City Council by the Chief Legislative Analyst that supports the recommendation by Post to reclassify the Airport Police to 830.1 status. This memo also mentions the resolution put forth by Council members Hahn and Rosenthal.
Go ahead, you can finish your sentence. Go ahead.
Okay, by Council members Hahn and Rosenthal in 2006 that states that since September 11th, the enforcement responsibilities of police officers at public airports has increased, and that placing airport police under 830.1 would provide the additional authorities that would enable its officers to perform their duties more effectively and expeditiously.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Rupert Stain is next. After that is Rodney Rudan.
Good morning, council
morning.
members. My name is Rupert Stain. I am a police officer with the LA Airport Police. This morning, I'd like to submit into the record the study conducted by CTI, a nationally respected aviation security consulting firm. The study, that at the cost of $900,000 to the Los Angeles World Airports, reviewed and unified command at LAX and the feasibility of a merger between Airport Police and LAPD. Not only did the study advocate that the agencies remain separate, as did the voters of Los Angeles when they voted down Measure A, but according to interviews performed as part of the CTI study, found that the Airport Police are, quote, one of the most formidable airport police agencies in the country and one of the largest and best trained police agencies in the country. The study also states that the Airport Police not only receives the same quality training as the other police officers, but also receive additional specialized aviation security training. In fact, it's important to note that the Airport Police are certified in aviation security training and train other police agencies throughout the state, including LAPD, as well as 49 major airports throughout the U.S., such as Chicago, New York, Dulles, Denver, and Dallas. As yet, although we provide training to other officers throughout the state, the U.S. and Canada, and we are the first line of defense in protecting what is considered to be a key terrorist target, we don't have the same authority as other police agencies responsible for protecting California's airports and harbors. AB 1377 will rectify that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Rodney Rudan is our next speaker. After that is Richard Andrade.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Rodney's not here. I'm Richard Andrade.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, council members. My name is Richard Andrade, and I'm a police officer with the Los Angeles Airport Police. I'd like to submit for the record a few of the letters of support that have been written on behalf of AB 1377. I'm also submitting letters of thanks from the U.S. Secret Service and LL Security Division for the outstanding security services provided by the Los Angeles Airport Police. Among the letters of support for AB 1377 being submitted are the Los Angeles Airport Peace Officers Association, Los Angeles Airport Peace Officers Supervisors Association, Airport Police Command Officers Association of Los Angeles, PORAC, Sonoma County Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Westchester Playa del Rey Neighborhood Council, which includes the LAX area, VICA Aviation Committee, and Los Angeles City Attorney Carmen Tutanich. As stated by former Chief Bayon Lewis, if I may finish, anything less than reclassifying the airport police under Penal Code 830.1 would be irresponsible and could potentially jeopardize the safety of Los Angeles airports and the general public. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony and your service. Marshall McLean is our next speaker. If you would like to submit that, sir, we can give it to Sergeant Arms. Make sure we get that. Appreciate it. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, council members. My name is Marshall McLean, and I am the president of the Los Angeles Airport Peace Officers Association. As you just heard from our officers, the Los Angeles Airport Police is one of the most respected law enforcement agencies in the country, and a renowned resources for aviation security training. In fact, it's because of our specialized training and our ability to work seamlessly with other local, state, and federal agencies at LAWA airports as the first line of defense that we've created one of the safest airport environments in the country. We're also proud of that. So with all of our success, you can imagine how dismayed, disappointed, and quite frankly stunned we were to hear of the resolution in opposition to our legislation for 830.1. It's unfortunate that a bill that should be overwhelmingly supported by all seems to have become a political issue. The idea that the council isn't behind this bill concerns all of us, since this bill is nothing more than a sound public policy. Today we ask that you vote this resolution down instead of support, can I finish? AB 1377, since regardless of what the Blue Ribbon panel may recommend, AB 1377 is strong public policy that is backed by the overwhelming evidence from the leading authorities in airport security. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Marshall. Appreciate it. We will next hear from Arnold Sachs on this issue.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Arnold Sachs. To the casual observer, you would look at this and say, well, your designation has already changed it by making this resolution to the LAWA peace officers as they designated against the LAPD. So what would happen, and I was thinking in terms of what would happen if the legislation designated the LAWA peace officers as LAPD. You'd be against it. But from what I understand, listening to the gentleman who just spoke, he mentioned that the Harbor Police, which is also a proprietary department, has the designation that LAWA seeks. So why were the agencies separated? They're both proprietary departments for the city of LA. Why would one have this designation and the other one not? And why would you oppose one having the designation while the other one has it? And just to make this designation full circle, why isn't the fire department designated because it works at a proprietary department?
Item 14 was referred back to the IT committee. So we'll go now to items that have been called special for cards from the public. Arnold Sachs, if you'd like to come back for item number 1 and for number 2.
Yes, thank you. Good morning again, Arnold Sachs. This is, again, following the money. Friday, you had an item on your agenda regarding a bid without any advisory, without administrative who was designated to administer the bid. This item has 2. The Wilmington Commercial Business District Improvement District Advisory Board and the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce, the nonprofit service provider for administration of the district. So if they're administrating the district, what is the other agency doing? It's about following the money. That's, I hate to keep bringing it up. You've shown through this gold card again where your head is at. And I don't want to say that, where it's at, but take a hint. But again, the question is why some bids have and why some don't.
Thank you. If you'd like to stay there for item number 2, let's go ahead and take a vote on 1. Please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. Number 2, Mr. Sachs.
Yeah, I question item number 2, the assessment part of this, because assessing property means people will be paying some fees to get services. So DWP doesn't pay a property assessment, they pay a transfer fee. Why can't the public find out, or why isn't information available to find out what would happen if DWP property in LA, in the city of LA or the county of LA, was assessed just like it is throughout the state in other counties? What the difference would be between the transfer fee and the property assessment would be.
You can bring it back to Proposition K, sir.
Well, I'm talking about what the assessment stands for.
I know that's just
sir.
one word in it, but we have to speak about Proposition K, which is a totally different thing. It said Parks General Fund vote by the people previously. So
I
if you
only
can
want to
bring
speak
that.
a minute, sir,
Okay.
and my time is running. Thank you.
But if you can bring it back, thank you.
Thank you. But generally speaking, you may have your strict parameters, but expand them a little bit for the public's benefit.
Okay, that will close our comments for number 2 on Proposition K for 2011-2012. Please bear the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. We have a card on number 3, Thomas Nitti, if you'd like to come forward.
Good morning, council members. Thomas Nitti for Nicola Sari, who's in the audience. When I appeared here last week, I had filed a written response to the proposed lien that was being put on my client's property. One comment I made in there was it seemed that $6,000 or 40% to order a fence for $17,000 is pretty exorbitant, especially considering there probably was some paperwork involved. I doubt there was $6,000 worth of paperwork involved in simply ordering a fence. But more importantly, in my written submission last week, I filed a copy of an appeal I filed back in 2003 to the notice of abatement. And to that appeal, which was date stamped by the City of Los Angeles as received, my client did not receive any appeal. Instead, the fence was put up several years later by the city without any consideration of the appeal that my client filed. Under the city ordinances, the appeal should have stopped that from occurring, but somehow that appeal was not processed by the city, and I have received no explanation as to why that happened. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll hold number 3 on the table for the moment, and if we can take up 4, and please prepare the roll on 4 and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. If we can go to 10, which is called special for a card from the public as well. Diane Walters, if you'd like to come forward on item number 10. Good morning.
My name is Diane Walters. Good morning. I'm here speaking on behalf of my mother, Marguerite Eaton. She's an 86-year-old widow. She's a veteran of World War II, and her home was placed into the REAP program via a terrible process. I have gone through, my mother is unable to speak for herself. I'm her caregiver. She cannot walk. She cannot eat.
Can you move the microphone down just a little bit so we can hear you a little better?
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, the bottom line is once this process is complete, I will prepare a letter from start to finish of this process that my mother's property has been through. We all recognize there are bad landlords, but there are also bad tenants. And in our case, this was my mother's own daughter. And my sister, because of the way LAHD is set up, was able to exploit not only the LAHD process, but she was able to exploit my mother's property. My mother's home that my sister was able to exploit is a single-family dwelling. My parents raised 7 children in that home. It's 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. Through this REAP process, the rent was reduced to $210 a month, including utilities. So my mother was actually losing money each and every month. And one of the reforms I see is I attended this general manager's hearing, and there is no due process. There is no checks and balances. This is very much one-sided in favor of the tenants. It's as if the LHD is set up to go after quote-unquote bad landlords. My mother is considered apparently a mom-and-pop landlord. If you own 10 or less units, you're considered mom-and-pop. This has basically bankrupted my mother. My mother owns a Burbank home that houses I have a brother who's schizophrenic, who is going to be put out of that house. That house is going to be sold toward the end of this month. This has completely devastated my mother's estate. And I am just hoping that I don't know what the process is. Thank you very much.
Go ahead. Thank you. That was, I think, comments on 10A. There are a number of different properties here, 10A through H. Would you like to hold 10A? Would you like to hold that? Okay. We'll hold 10A, and Mr. Krikorian, your representative, will have somebody speak with you about that. Thank you for that testimony. So we'll hold that one on the desk, so we won't vote on that. If we can take up 10B through H, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Okay. Those other properties have been approved. If we can go next to item 9, called special by Mr. Alacon. There's 2 cards, Mr. Alacon. Should we take those first? We have 2 cards on item number 9, which you called special. Okay. Miriam Fogler is our first speaker, and Van Nuys. After that is Armanak Norjanian here in council.
Yeah, like I spoke earlier on public comment, that if the mayor decides to go ahead and call a fiscal emergency here, that you can't just go ahead and arbitrarily, you cannot cut services to the public and put oppressive maneuvers on workers. We have rights, you know. Just because you say you won your round about furloughs, but furloughing people also costs the city more money because in the long term, people end up having to have to go on overtime when things break down, or giving out tickets, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea of it is that you're losing your trust from the workers, and they don't want to trust you anymore.
I'm sorry, ma'am. If you can bring it back to the specific item here is the rent stabilization ordinance. And that's,
Oh, I thought it was the,
no, we have
what
rent
number
sta-
was the one for the mayor's state of emergency?
There's no mayor's state of emergency. The mayor's veto message already moved on to next
Okay,
agenda.
thank
That's number
you.
19. Thank you. Armanak Norajanian is our next speaker on this item.
Respectable City Council members, dear fellow engineers, I endorse with adoption of item 9 so that certain various sections of rent stabilization ordinance will be actually will actually be rewritten in order to adopt most progressive version of them. And I believe in rent stabilization is a part of social justice. And the rent stabilization program makes what empowers most of poor Angelinos, destitute Angelinos, because thousands of people are lined up, those long lines, in order to waiting for Section 8 housing. And I believe what most those parts of the ordinance of rent stabilization will be kept in order to enforce social justice. And so what no item, no part of the Rent Stabilization Act, that enforces social justice will be omitted or deleted. And I also very much address this issue, and because it's very important for Los Angeles, to keep affordable housing. Affordable housing is very rare and practically very hard to get within the limits of Los Angeles. And so that all the progressive, sections of the rent stabilization ordinance should be kept, and shouldn't be deleted. And that's for city officials, the city government, to keep those progressive parts of rent stabilization ordinance in order to allow people to get affordable housing as soon as possible. Because we wait in line for 3 years and more, just to get that, affordable housing. And if Los Angeles city officials build new housing, they should build more, if not substandard housing, but decent housing with large, spacious apartments, decent people could live. Because they build a very substandard housing, and this is disgrace, to the city of Los Angeles,
Thank you. That will close our public comment on 9. Mr. Alarcon. Item number 9. All right. Let's go ahead then and prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
As approved, we'll go to number 5, called special by Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. On April 27th, the Mayor's Office proposed consolidating the HR functions of 9 city departments. And we have 45 days to act on that, that would be deemed approved on June 10th. I'm not suggesting that we debate the pros or cons of consolidation or discuss its merits. Simply, I'm asking that we adopt the recommendation of the Joint Personnel and Budget Committee to disapprove of the Mayor's proposal, again, not on the merits, but on the short period of time that we have to provide analysis, most of which has expired while we were otherwise preoccupied by the budget. I'm suggesting that we undertake further discussions and analysis on this. In committee, we asked the departments being considered for consolidation to come back in September to put forward their operational plans. After further discussion, I think we should suggest an earlier time of late July because I believe they'll be positioned to do that in a more timely fashion at that time. Mr. Parks may have some things to add as chair of the Budget Committee, and as I understand it, representatives of personnel and the CAO are here if you have any questions. Otherwise, I would just ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Koretz. Any other members wishing to speak on this? If not, let's go ahead. Mr. LaBanche.
Jerry, tell us your advice. You're the legislative analyst. Is this good thing, bad thing?
Well,
on the substance, it could be a very good thing. Mr. Koretz is exactly right. This came out under Charter Section 514 or whatever it is, so there's a 45-day window in which to act, and it was all occurring during the budget. So the committees simply wanted to step back and take a look at what the implications are of this. Disapproving it does not mean that we're recommending that you disapprove the consolidation, just that you take sufficient time to look at it.
Members, I just think it's, in this period of time, does this help us do our core business better? That's a question we all ask ourselves.
And that's the question that's going to need to be answered from the various departments that are going to be impacted.
So let's just say, what would it be, what would the transformation be by this period of time? That means it would be in September?
Well, if the departments come back in July, and there certainly could be some decision made before you go on your summer break. So yeah, it could be implemented sometime.
But you support this concept to study it hard, to see where we could save, to see where we could duplicate it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just ask that the CLA, CAO, and personnel department reach out to all of these impacted departments and answer their questions, so when it comes back to committee, we won't have that litany of folks showing up with their anxiety that they weren't listened to. We may not agree with them, but at least they would be listened to, and at least the CAO and report should reflect what the reasons that they did not support what department's concerns are, or at least outline the remedy to solve their particular dilemma. So we just needed a thorough report back in July, because the last meeting we had, there were people with certain anxieties in the meeting, and they certainly should be aired, but we should have it as a composite, as a report.
Mr. Alicorn.
Council members, I have no problem with the motion. I think 45-day turnaround on something this complex is just too short a time for the council to consider, and so I support the committee's recommendation to continue the matter. I also support the idea of exploring this possibility. Having served in the personnel department as a senior personnel analyst, I can tell you that I used to wonder, how independent the human resources functions were at the various departments, depending on size and scope of the department. Sometimes their department personnel managers operate almost independent from the entire city. And that's not to say it cuts across all departments, and I don't know whether any of the departments being considered operate like that. But I think when we have to consider that we respond to lawsuits related to employee relations issues, employee matters, and if we can't have our departments all operating differently. There are some special considerations when you look at the police department, for example. But even DWP, I wonder sometimes why we are operating differently. But I'm not ready to draw a final conclusion. But I appreciate the committee's delay, and I also, Mr. Parks, would like to hear from all the stakeholders as to what they think about it. Some of the DPOs, the department personnel managers, might be offended by the comments I just made. So I'd like to hear from all those folks as well before we make a final decision on this. So if the CLA could give us a briefing, I'd appreciate it. If you can arrange a briefing with some of the interested parties, as well as the details of how the transaction is going to occur.
Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Miller, when we have discussions about our budget, and we talk about our role as a municipal corporation, and we speak to the notion of how do we improve the city's ability to perform, that we have roles to keep with our core services, and then there's this whole challenge we have about revenue creation, revenue generation. does this discussion regarding human resources, does it have an impact on that whole dynamic of how do we reassess ourselves as a city, and do we become more proactive in creating revenue, looking at our properties, looking at our functions? Is there a relationship here with that discussion, given how this is being presented?
Well, and not so much in terms of revenue. Certainly, I think, as was mentioned, in terms of liability. What the proposal here is to consolidate the human resources functions of various departments into personnel. That would mean discipline. That would mean filling out the Form 41s. Essentially, the personnel human resources functions, no matter what we decide or you decide your core functions are, there has to be an HR component to those core functions. So the end game, or the goal of the proposal, would be to better standardize various HR practices, to limit the liability for any inconsistencies, to make it more efficient. But again, I think the committees wanted to hear more from the departments that are going to be directly impacted, how they operate now, what their concerns are, and just take a sort of a more detailed look at the proposal.
So working on the skill sets, working with union contracts, and how we look at personnel, how we move forward as a city, is a whole other track of discussions that's not really focused on this particular objective.
Correct. This is a behind-the-scenes function that will hopefully make those core functions themselves work better.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes, and that will close our discussion on this. If we please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. If we can reconsider, too, there are some amendments to that. Please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
As before us, Mr. Labange?
With on that right away.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on it as amended with 2A. Please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
That is approved. And we'll next go to item 20, called special by Mr. Huizar. Oh, yes, Mr. Kretz, before that.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to acknowledge the fact that we have students from the Valley Beth Shalom Day School here, so if they stand up and wave, let's give them all a big hand.
Thank you and welcome. Always great to have VBS in the house. And with that, we'll go to item 20, and I'll recognize Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, this item concerns the Olvera Street leases, which, as you know, we adopted in council and forwarded to the El Pueblo Commission back in May the 3rd. On May 12th, the Commission approved the leases and also provided a deadline of June 30th by which all merchants at Olvera Street should sign their leases. As you know, this is a 15-year odyssey getting us to this point. Some people would call it something else than an odyssey, but the fact of the matter is that the city is now owning up to its responsibilities as a landlord, and finally we will have a document in place that not only will provide the rights and responsibilities of all parties, but will also take into account the historical contributions of the many merchants who have been there on Olvera Street generation after generation. If I could have the CLA quickly come up, Jerry Miller. And Mr. Miller, I kind of just gave a brief synopsis of where we are now. Anything different from the Commission's adoption of the leases to what's before us today, and any final issues that we should clarify before we finalize this document?
It's substantially the same, Mr. Huizar. You did bring in a motion when you approved, the council approved the leases in concept relative to personal detention. The commission did adopt what the council requested there. There's also some measurement clarification issues that are attached, but the substance of the lease is the same. It's exactly what the council had approved on the 3rd.
Okay. And can you clarify for the record what is the rental rate that is expected of the merchants for the back rent and the rent deposit?
The rent deposit is the security deposit is 2 months' rent. Back rent will go back to November 1st. The lease provided that back rent could be paid over I believe it's a 3-year period. We went back and forth between 2 and 3. There was a provision added that if certain merchants are going to see their total payments between rent, security deposit, back rent, and the common area maintenance fee go up by more than 150%, then they can spread the security deposit and the back rent over 5 years.
Okay. Great, thank you. Mr. President, are there any public speakers on this item?
Yes, we do have cards on this. Would you like to hear those
Okay,
now?
let's go to the public comments first. I may have some questions afterwards. Thank you.
All right. We have Paul. Sorry, I can't quite read the last name. Hamilton? Oh, sir, how are you, sir?
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry, we'll work on the penmanship together. Don't worry. And then our next speaker is Edward Flores after that.
My secretary works on my penmanship too, so you're not alone. I'm Paul Hamilton. I represent the Olvera Street Merchants Association. First of all, we are grateful for all that you've done. There's still a couple minor issues that will get ironed out, I expect, in the next week or so. We still have yet to see the final exhibits. I expect I'll see those in the next couple of days. One of the issues before, if you will, the commission, which is important to at least one merchant, is E14 Mi Rosa. That's owned by Mike and his wife, Mariscal. He will speak to that. We need to get the measurements right. We need to get the rent rate right, and so forth. Other than that, I would certainly tell you that the merchants will soon be ready to sign documents with a few minor adjustments that need yet to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Edward Flores is our next speaker. After that is Andrea Garcia.
Good morning, Council. My name is Edward Flores. I am an Olvera Street merchant, and as many from my generation, I was actually born one. My family has been on Olvera Street since 1930s, and I want to thank the councilman and his staffers, such as Anna, for taking this issue at a point when it looked like it was stalling and moving it forward and getting it to a conclusion. I just wanted to clarify a few things. The merchants on Olvera Street have had several adjustments in their rents over the last 25 years or so, because I've heard comments such as phrases below market rate and a gift of public funds used in order to create a sentiment that the merchants have been taking advantage of the city. But in fact, they've actually had some rent increases over the years where they actually have been paying market rate at some point in the past. We've been stewards of Olvera Street and maintaining the culture there and the ambience, the traditional events, and we've helped maintain Olvera Street for the generations that have come and visitors that have come there. And I want to thank all of you for finally getting us to this day, like I said, especially our councilman. And there's a few issues that are outstanding, but it's my understanding that those will be resolved shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments today. Andrea Garcia is our next speaker, and then Emily Martinez.
Good morning. Yes,
Morning.
my name is Andrea Garcia. I also want to thank all of you for listening to this matter. My son now handles the shop that I own in the middle, a 76-square little shop, which I use for retail and storage. And he's now the 4th generation. I want to continue there on Olvera Street in a positive role. I think it's important that the city support us, generate publicity to counteract the negative publicity that Olvera Street's had. I need to make business work for me so that I can comply with the rents that are now being asked of me. And I can't do it if the city doesn't invest in appropriate advertisement, and we need creativity in getting people down there to enjoy Olvera Street and all it has to hold for our children, all in the Los Angeles area, which many don't even know exist. We need to start making that change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emily Martinez is our next speaker. After that is Cristina Mariscal. Good morning.
Thank you, Council President, Council members. I'd like to thank you, and I hope we get this issue resolved. I'd like to say that the square footage is being discussed. I know that a lot of merchants, with all due respect to my fellow merchants, are complaining that Part is storage, part is office, the other part is retail. When you rent a business, you rent a business, you do what you want with it. I had a store across the street at the Metro Plaza Hotel, and the owner there didn't charge me a square footage for storage or square footage for office. And I think some of the merchants have been paying way below fair market rate. And I think finally we're getting equitable rents. I have 71 square feet. I have two businesses. One is 71 square feet, and I was paying $4.23 a square foot. Now, with the new rents, I'm paying $13 a square foot. Everyone should pay their fair share. I'm very grateful to be on Olvera Street. My grandmother came there in 1934, and I think we should all give. The city gives, the merchants give for all that we have done. Thank you, Councilman Reyes, our councilman, Tom LaBonge, and all the city parties involved. Please resolve this matter so we can go on with our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Cristina Mariscal and then Mike Mariscal. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I just ran here.
Don't worry.
We're talking about provision number 3 on item number 20, which directly references my family's business, number E14. As you may be aware, 10 of the businesses had to have their square footage remeasured in order to put them in the appropriate dollar range. While 9 out of the 10 updates were noted in Mr. Andrade's latest report, the updated numbers for our shop were not included. Measurements taken by bus put us at 984 square feet. While this provision requests an extension of 60 days to remeasure, my fear is that my family will be stuck paying the original Riggs numbers, as the second part of this provision recommends that we pay based on the existing measures. Excuse me. I have excerpts with me from the Riggs report, which lend strong force supporting a $3 per square foot rate for our shop instead of $5.50 per square foot rate. This is provided that more than 960 square feet is determined for the premises, which, as previously stated, we are well above the 960. It is also important to note that Riggs arbitrarily determined that 960 square feet has a $5.50 rate. The comparables, however, in the same Riggs report show that 800 to 1,000 square feet fall in the $3 to $4 range, which is where we hope to land. Again, I'm grateful that this provision provides an extension for remeasurement, and my goal in coming here today is to simply bring light to the situation and kindly ask that you advocate on our behalf once the new measurements are presented. This would mean a great deal to me personally and to our family's 80-year legacy on Olvera Street. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Good job. Mike Mariscal. Good morning.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Mike Mariscal. My family has been on Olvera Street for 80 years. Oh, that was generation number 5 you just heard, my daughter Christina. If the new measurements are not adopted, my rent will go up over 300%. Just to give you an idea, I will be paying more in rent and camp fees in 1 year than the income that I make for my wife and I working side by side approximately 65 to 70 hours a week. That will be my new rent increase. It is for this reason that I'm stating my case to all of you, and to answer questions as to why my numbers were not included in Mr. Andrade's report, I have to provide some clarification. It seems that based on conversations that have taken place over the last few days, there was a misunderstanding into regards to what was submitted to the El Pueblo office. I was under the impression that my numbers were submitted by our committee and was not aware that more clarification was needed. I understand that these numbers were possibly needed to be put onto a diagram for the premises, and that is what is needed to be used to substantiate my measurements. So that being said, I come today that acknowledge that there was a mix-up and a misunderstanding as to what was needed. My understanding is that our lawyer has talked to Mr. Andrade already this morning, and that this will be clarified and straightened up this week. So again, I want to thank you for your support, and I hope this all comes to the right conclusion for everybody, including the city and all the merchants involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And when we adopted these leases back in May 3rd, we recognized that there were 2 issues remaining to clarify. One was the correct measurements of some of the stores that were there. We've since done that. We've had some clarification. We have a few more nuances with that respect, but I think those could be clarified after we adopt the leases. And finally, the other issue was the 80-hour-a-month commitment by the owners. We have some language there, I think, that will satisfy the intent of the original language. But finally, I just want to thank all people who were involved, and first and foremost, I want to thank the merchants for your patience. When I first got elected about 5.5 years ago, many of you asked that we do something about the leases, and we are here now. It took longer than expected, but given all the different issues involved and the lack of attention that has happened over the last 15 years, we had to sort a lot of that out. Secondly, the City Attorney's Office, the CLA, the CAO, and my staff, particularly Ana Cubas, have done a spectacular job this last year when my office got intricately more involved with coming up with a solution. This is good for all. Not everyone will be happy, but I think at the end of the day, we're moving forward in the right direction. And last but not least, Jerry Miller and your staff, you guys did an incredible job in getting down to details and finding out more about real estate that I thought the city knew about. So thank you. And the future of El Pueblo is one where hopefully we could do more marketing, bring more visitors, more tourists, and secondly, find a comprehensive plan where we work closer with the county that owns some property across the street and work closer with some other entities in the city that can continue to respect the history of El Pueblo and the families and merchants that are there, but also bring more people to the place so we could continue to make the birthplace of the city of Los Angeles a destination point for people throughout the world. Thank you, and colleagues, I ask for your aye vote on this important item.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Huizar, on that and the work that was done and the city staff, especially City Attorney's Office. An attraction like our historic Pueblo must be supported by the people in the city. And those in the city now have an opportunity to see a marketing plan, as you talked of, to see some development. Because not all of us has found our way there. Some of the greatest locations in our city have the highest percentage of support from the local people who live in the area. So it's extremely key as we move forward to see that develop so that people from throughout the Pasadena, East Los Angeles, Hollywood, Central City come there as if it's their neighborhood park as well. Come there to explore and to bring people and make it a situation that invites people to come with ease. And with the red line that is there, it's so important with the Metrolink. The only thing that I pushed for that haven't been successful is we help shadow this is a bike rental facility on the Pueblo so people could come by train, not only explore the birthplace of Los Angeles, but explore downtown as well. So you did a lot of hard work on that. I appreciate that, and it's the key to success is the hard work and understanding what the boundaries are of the beautiful historic monument known as El Pueblo. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no other speakers from the council, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on this item.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Excuse me. Oh.
Yeah, as amended, I'm sorry. With the amendment, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay. That is approved as amended. Mr. Huizar?
Okay, great. Thank you. I just want to clarify that the amendment was technical in nature so that people who are watching this and may feel concerned that we changed something. It's actually just a technical amendment, nothing substantive.
Yes, and that's made public right away. It's on the board up there as well for the public to read.
Please.
It's forthwith without objection. We'll go to 21 next. And that was called special also by Mr. Huizar. Did you want to say anything at the outset, Mr. Huizar, or go to cards?
Thank you, Mr. President. And colleagues, what's before us today is a motion by myself and Councilmember Ed Reyes where we share some common constituents in the northeast part of Los Angeles where the Mount Washington Museum is located. This Section 245 is asking us to take into our jurisdiction... Thank you. The Southwest Museum. Thank you, Mr. Labange. In Mount Washington. This Section 245 is asking that we take under our jurisdiction an action by Recreation and Parks Commission that happened a couple of weeks ago. I'm asking that we take this under our jurisdiction because there were many constituents of ours that felt they did not have an opportunity to attend the hearing, voice their perspective, or were not even properly notified about this commission hearing. This issue, as many of you know, has a long history. It started with the merger of the Autry and the Southwest Museum, and people in Northeast Los Angeles feeling as if their historical museum will no longer be in place or be respected as a destination museum for all to enjoy. Since then, there have been plans to expand at the Griffith Park site for the Autry. That issue came before the what's the commission that you chair, or Board of Joint Powers Commission?
Board of
Referred Powers.
Referred Powers.
At that point, that committee, which is composed of 5 council members, voted not to support the expansion. This item before us is a Rec and Parks proposal to remodel some facilities at the Autry site at Griffith Park, but many residents feel that they were not given the opportunity to be heard, and hence we bring forward the Section 245 motion. I would ask for your support that whether you agree or do not agree with the substance of the action, that you give the many interested individuals an opportunity to be heard, which they felt they did not have that opportunity. So thank you, and I ask that you provide a large number of folks their opportunity to be part of a larger comprehensive solution to what has happened between the Southwest Museum and the Autry National Center. Thank you.
Mr. Labange?
Thank you. I'd like to ask city staff at the center table, please, to explain to the council what exactly is this relationship between the Autry National Center and the City of Los Angeles, and the relationship between the Autry National Center and what once was the Southwest Museum as we knew it in former times. Could anyone explain that?
Sid Makarag, Director of Real Estate for Recreation and Parks. The relationship we have with the Autry National Center is that they are a current lessee of the city. They are using a portion of the department, the city's Griffith Park, for the operation of a museum.
And that site previously, where the Autry National Center is next to the Golden State Freeway, which was the old Roger Young housing in World War II, which was not an occupied space of green space, but was developed and enhanced. And then they went and got a grant from the state of California, and the state of California, on an open process, gave Autry this grant money of $6.5 million. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And what they propose to do is within the confines, just like at Olvera Street, within the confines of that boundary, not to expand, but to enhance its mission. And the fact that the Southwest Museum, of what it once was known, is no longer in existence. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Right, and we should understand that. And I know people are very passionate about that. But what once was the Southwest Museum is no longer the Southwest Museum. It now is the Autry, the National Center, that kept it in Los Angeles, because it could have gone other places. So I think it's extremely unfair that some agency, whether it's a museum in Expo Park, museum in the San Fernando Valley, or in this case the Autry National Center, that they go out and they get a grant to enhance their mission, that we 245 this mission that they try to do to educate the people as it relates to the native West and its relationship to all about that history. And Ms. Adams, if you could answer the question, do you believe as the Assistant General Manager of Recreation and Parks or the City Attorney that anything was done not to what is the law?
Regina Adams, Executive Officer, Recreation and Parks. No, I do not. First of all, this item was agendized. It was originally supposed to be on our board meeting for May 18th, but on May 9th, our board office posted that meeting, due to a lack of a quorum with our commissioners, that the meeting was going to be changed to the date of May 20th. Then on May 18th, 2 days before the meeting, is when we were able to actually get the reports finished, as well as post the agenda to the public, letting them know the items that were going to be on the agenda for May 20th. Also, and the city attorney can back me up here, as far as the comment it was made about our board president, Barry Sanders, and whether or not he was able to take action on this, he was able to do that because his previous relationship with Latham & Watkins was not a part of this process because Latham & Watkins has not provided any input to the Alta Museum in over a year, and so that's why he did not have to recuse himself from taking action on this item.
Thank you. Listen to the facts, make your determination. I believe this is an internal remodelization that has gone through the process, that has the support of the commission, has the support of the department, and the approval of the city attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have cards on this item. We have 30 cards, colleagues. We have 25 on the for proposal side and 5 on the against side. Any guidance as to how we should proceed? Anybody wishing to make a motion? If not, we'll just start digging and we'll go back and forth until we have
A public hearing, 15 on each side, or whatever it takes to get through the cards, whatever you want. That gives an opportunity.
Okay, there's been a motion. I think we would exhaust the against ones pretty quickly, given that. So we could do a half-hour hearing. We can do at least 2 minutes for the against proposal. We'll start with 2 minutes and get through as many on the for. Is that
Well, I
acceptable,
would just
Mr. Huizar?
go for the
Mr.
people
Huizar
who want to articulate the takeover of the 245.
So let's go ahead. We'll start, if we can set the clock for a half-hour public hearing on this, and we will go with the against ones first. Is that all right, Mr. Labange, then?
With the green labels. Those who are for the 245.
Okay, we'll reserve then out of that half hour 10 minutes at the end. We'll do 20 minutes. Again, if folks take 2 minutes, which they're entitled to, that will mean less at the bottom of folks who came a little later. But if you speak for only a minute, that means more of the folks who are here will have a chance to speak. So we appreciate everyone's understanding. Joseph Young is our first speaker, and then Jerry Hans will be our second.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning.
Mr. President, council members. My name is Joe Young, and with Friends of Griffith Park, and I have a handout for each of you. I did pull up the agenda for the Rec and Park Commission meeting scheduled for the 20th. I pulled it up on the 18th. It was not available prior to that time. And what I'm passing around is what I saw when I pulled up the agenda. The entire agenda was 60 pages. What I'm sending around now is a copy of 6 of those pages. The first 2 pages are the summary of the agenda items, and it uses the word renovation to describe what the item was all about. The next 4 pages are the verbal description included with the 60-page agenda packet. I noticed when I looked through, first of all, I thought that was rather innocuous. It simply said renovation. I noticed when I read through the 4 pages of the verbal description that there was no mention of the Southwest Museum, and in fact, no mention of the provenance of the Indian artifacts discussed therein. I think with the understanding of the public and the great concern that they have about the Southwest Museum, that this was not an accurate description of what was really going on. I think it was much more to it than a renovation, and I appreciate that the Autry was able to obtain a lot of funding to do their project, but I think the public really didn't understand or were led to understand exactly what this request was all about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jerry Hans is our next speaker, and then Tony Butka.
Jerry Hans, also Friends of Griffith Park. We're talking about $6.6 million of taxpayer money being spent here, and the public totally missed the opportunity to make comment. Section 245s apparently don't happen very often. They shouldn't happen at all, but we're very glad there is such a thing. Recs and Parks Commission needs to follow the rules. There needs to be proper notification. They need to listen to public comment. And regarding the recusal issue that Councilmember Labange brought up, if there is a 1-year period of time, a cutoff, that seems a little ridiculous. We ask for a vote on this item in order to allow a fair hearing on this issue. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony Butkus. Our next speaker after that is Dr. Clyde Williams. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Tony Butkus, and I reside in Glissell Park. I would like to personally thank Councilman Huizar and Councilman Reyes for stepping up on this matter. And I'd like to read to you from a fax I sent to the various council offices this morning to enter into the record. I believe that this is a rare opportunity for the City Council to support their colleagues, get points with the community for allowing a public hearing and debate over a controversial action by one of their commissions, and still reserve any final vote to the Commission's action until listening to public input and making an independent decision. What's not to like? I urge your support for the motion on item 21 and hope that the 10 votes will be forthcoming. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Clyde Williams is next, and then Mark Kenyon.
You've already heard me before. Dr. Clyde Williams, El Sereno, also LA 32 Neighborhood Council, one of 8 neighborhood councils who supported reopening the Southwest Museum with its collections. We are very concerned regarding any transfer of Southwest Museum collections to the Griffith campus, since they're both campuses. What I would like to do is support the motion for 245 on this item for a fair and serious hearing and consideration, not only of the project itself, but also the contractual and environmental considerations that the current project may entail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark Kenyon. After that is Pepe Feinblatt.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Mark Kenyon. I'm here representing myself as well as the Mount Washington Homeowners Alliance. I want to thank Councilmember Huizar and Councilmember Reyes for giving us the opportunity to speak today on this issue, because frankly, Recreation and Parks did not give us that opportunity. I received emails from Recreation and Parks on their agendas. I did not receive one on this item, nor did I receive any since the month of April. I'm here to object to that. That is just wrong. We're passionate about that because the Autry is committing a fraud not only on the public but on the City of Los Angeles. The Southwest Museum is not closed. It's only closed because they refuse to live up to the promises that they made to us in their merger agreement. The facts that the use that's being moved to Griffith Park are the very ones that existed until they closed the Southwest Museum to public use a year or so ago. Those facts are there. They're plain and obvious, but you nor I nor anyone has the opportunity to see that because this was snuck through at the in a secret meeting that was not noticed to the public. So I would ask you to vote yes for this motion so that we can have an opportunity to have our words heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pepe Feinblatt is our next speaker. After that is Joe Feinblatt.
Pepe will pass.
Okay. All right, Joe. And then Daryl Ramos Young.
Right. I come here as a citizen whose family has been in the city of Los Angeles for more than 100 years, with concern that when issues as important as this, with implications for the historic resources of our community, don't have a public hearing. I urge very much that this council take jurisdiction and allow a full public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Daryl Ramos Young is our next speaker. After that is Nicole Hossert.
Thank you. Thank you to all you council members for all the good work that you do. I don't think that you hear that enough. And again, thank you for Councilmember Huizar and Councilmember Reyes for bringing this to the agenda to today's meeting. I would like to share that I'm taking unpaid time from work to encourage all of you to vote yes on this agenda item. And many of my fellow citizens are feeling the same way and find themselves in the same position. Could all those people who like the council members to vote yes on this agenda item please stand up, please? Thank you. For each person in attendance today, there are probably 20 people who cannot make it for each individual because these meetings are very difficult to attend during the workday at 10 o'clock in the morning. However, I'm confident that they have bombarded your district offices with phone calls, faxes, and emails. So you have an exciting morning ahead of you when you return to the office. A vote yes on this agenda item is not a vote against the renovation of the Autry Museum. A vote yes is simply a vote to support the public's request for a fair and open public hearing. We would like you to please consider providing us, the public, the proper amount of time to be notified and have input into the future fate of a public park, which many of us use. And as you heard from the Assistant General Manager for the Parks and Rec Commission, 2 days notice for those few that did know, and if you were to request staff records, you would see that many stakeholders on the email listserv were not contacted as per standard process for such a special board meeting. So please, thank you for considering voting yes and assuming jurisdiction over the Commission's decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Nicole Possard is our next speaker. After that is Richard Rivera.
Good morning, council members. Thank you for taking the time this morning. I represent the Friends of the Southwest Museum Coalition, and I would like to point out that at the Rec and Parks Commission meeting on the 20th of May, there were only 4 speakers there for this item. They were all Autry representatives who knew about the item, unlike the public who did not. I, too, am an official person on the early notification list for the Recreation and Parks Commission. I did not receive the agendas, the special or the change because of the quorum. The last agenda I received was in April, curiously. So I think there is a process problem with the Commission. There's also a LA Times article that I would like to pass out to you, speaking to a different commission, the LA Coliseum, also led by Commissioner Sanders, who says over the rave issue that I want people to have an opportunity to be heard. That's a slap in the face of the community and the commissioners and the public who wasn't present. So again, I urge you to vote yes to give us as a community and as a city a proper place in which to air the technical questions and answers and the merits of the case. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Richard Rivera is our next speaker, then Daniel Wright will follow.
Good morning, council members. I want to thank Council Member Reyes and Huizar for bringing this motion to the City Council. My name is Richard Rivera, and I am, like many here, uniquely an Angelino. My specific interest is not because I'm a resident of Highland Park, nor because I've been an educator in LA and for over 20 years, but more so because I consider myself a steward of Griffith Park. I'm not a member of the Friends of Griffith Park, but I was a program director of Griffith Park Boys Camp back in 1984 through 88, 5 years of serving the residents of LA, over 5,000 children that I was not sitting in an office, but intimately aware of what they were doing in the park. I look at the Autry as just one place within Griffith Park. And I believe that if we are to go ahead and continue improving the Autry, that it should be done so in an appropriate way. Anyone that studied history knows that the Native peoples' history and artifacts are something that historically has been taken and demonstrated or displayed in inappropriate ways. I do not believe that the process that on May 20th didn't allow for public comment is the appropriate way to go forward with whatever may take place with the Autry and the Southwest Museum. I urge you to consider this motion very seriously and to allow for the appropriate process, time, consideration, public comment, etc. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Daniel Wright is our next speaker. After that is Martha Benedict.
Good morning, Daniel Wright of the Friends of the Southwest Museum Coalition. Myself and a rather impressive number of people are here today despite the Autry expansion project being timed so that the Section 245 motion would be heard immediately after the Memorial Day holiday. It appears that when Autry was unable to obtain permits to replicate and replace the Southwest Museum's exhibits and ethnobotanical gardens in the first version of its project in an open and transparent series of hearings, it set about with Councilmember Labange's office to obtain these permits in a stealth and underhanded way. The actions of the Recreation and Parks were intended to deprive 7,000 people who signed petitions in support of the Southwest Museum and hundreds of people who specifically filled this hall. I'm sure that Councilmember Parks will remember that hearing. And the dozens of people who were on that list to receive that email so they could participate in their government. And that is a fundamental governmental right, and that is what is at stake here. It's not the merits of the issue today, as Councilmember Labange just tried to portray to you. It's a question of integrity. So when the government selects who will get notice of meetings based upon their prior First Amendment speech, and maliciously intend to deprive those persons of their First Amendment rights to participate in government, that is a denial of fundamental civil rights. And the best way for you to avoid a Section 1983 civil rights action for denial of free speech rights is to exercise your jurisdiction and to review the Commission's decision in an open and transparent process. Your vote yes on 21 is a test of this Council's commitment to integrity. A vote no feeds the people's cynicism and growing anger at their local government that does not want to listen to them. I urge a yes vote, unanimously.
Thank you. Martha Benedict is our next speaker. After that is Janet Dodson.
My name is Martha Benedict. I'm president of the Arroyo Seco Neighborhood Council, and my stakeholders are deeply concerned about this issue. We would like to have a fair and open process. I thank Councilman Huizar and Reyes for bringing this forward, and I hope you'll support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Janet Dodson is next. After that is Gail Burns.
I'm Janet Dodson. I'm on the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council, and I would like also to thank Councilman Reyes and Councilman Huizar for bringing this motion forward today. Councilman Wesson and council members, we do not understand why questions about our valuable public Southwest Museum cannot be heard in public. We do not have access behind the scenes to lobby to prevent having our museum taken away, closed, and lost to us. Please support this motion and allow us to have transparency in your deliberations for this very public matter and not have it hidden from view in backroom deals with powerful special interests getting the advantage. A no vote on this motion will seem to us to be a yes vote for darkness and hidden government operations. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Gail Burns is our next speaker. After that is Heinrich Kiefer.
I've been listening to the speakers, and I ditto everybody in front of me. But as we just saw with the issue that was here regarding Alvera Street, the Southwest Museum and its holdings are as important to this community as Alvera Street is. And we would like, as they've had 15 years to discuss their issues, we would at least like to have proper notice, more than 2 days, to discuss our issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Heinrich Kiefer is next. After that is Marshall McKay.
My name is Heinrich Kiefer, former member of the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council, the Kiwanis Club, currently as well as a Friends of the Southwest Museum member. And I echo Dan Wright's sentiments. All I could say is shame on the Autry. They came to our community. A couple of years ago, they attempted that open process, trying to do their expansion, and now they're trying to slide something in the back door. This is really unfair. It really needs to be looked into. We need to have our voices heard. I think we pledged for liberty a few minutes ago. Let's not take that away, and I encourage a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Marshall McKay. After that is Charles Fisher. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Honorable Council. My name is Marshall McKay. I'm chairman of the Yochadihi Wintu Nation. I'm also chairman of the Autry Board of Trustees. Here are the facts about the project funded by the $6.6 million grant from the California State Parks Nature Education Facilities Program, designed to support the significant projects which advance the environmental education for this state. This is one of the competitive grants that our application was fairly considered as one of the large number of applicants. Our application was endorsed in writing by state legislators Carol Liu, Mike Gatto, and Speaker Perez. Our project takes place entirely within the existing footprint of the Autry building in Griffith Park, provides for a renovation and reinstallation of 2 existing galleries and 1 existing garden, as well as work on restrooms and hallways. This project will highlight history and culture of Native peoples and include 2 dedicated California galleries with Native American teaching gardens highlighting various ecosystems in which Native people lived for generations as stewards of the land and its resources. This project will provide the 50,000 children from the LA Unified School District that come to the Autry every year the opportunity to learn about my people, about our shared history, and about how Native vision has integrated indigenous values, lifeways, and natural environments. This project will also showcase less than 1% of the objects at the Southwest Museum's collection. Many of these artifacts have never had public display. The Autry is proud to have been selected among other Los Angeles institutions, including the Natural History Museum and the California Science Center, to receive these funds to bring new educational opportunities to Los Angeles, its children, its visitors, enabling all of us to learn about our shared history and our shared responsibility to protect our fragile natural resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Charles Fisher is our next speaker.
Good morning. Charlie Fisher, 140 South Avenue 57, Highland Park. This has been an ongoing situation for many years, and yet I feel I tend to use metaphors sometimes when I speak about from literature, from movies. I'm thinking of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe today. The very beginning, when Arthur Dent was informed by the bulldozers that his house was to be torn down, and found out that, yes, the whole thing was on display in the basement of a obscure county building in his location, and he had no idea this was happening. Of course, at the same time, the Earth had no idea that the Vogons were going to destroy the planet, and everything was on display at Alpha Centauri, but nobody knew about it. I feel like Arthur Dent today. We did not know that this was happening, that this was being decided upon. We ask that the Council do assert jurisdiction and give us a fair hearing so that we can discuss this matter openly. I am reminded of a letter that the Autry submitted to their membership back in 2002, where it set up the Autry National Center and set up the Southwest Museum and the Autry Museum as equal partners within the Autry National Center. This letter, which I still have my copy of and has been disseminated, is a very important part of the promises that they made to the members and to the community, which they have violated. And these hidden agendas, where nobody is notified, is a violation of the Brown Act, and it must be rectified. And that's where the 245 motion comes in. I thank you very much, and especially Council Members Huizar and Reyes, for asking that this be brought before the Council. And please assert jurisdiction here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie. Our next speaker is Edward Casey. After that is Daniel Finley.
Good morning, Council members. My name is Ed Casey of the law firm of Alston & Bird, appearing today on behalf of the Autry National Center. We submitted a letter to you all that addresses a number of procedural and legal issues, so I will only summarize some of those comments in my testimony today. First, your staff told you about issues about potential conflict of interest between the Latham Watkins law firm and the Autry. And they told you that the relationship between those two folks ended over a year ago. It ended because the Autry engaged my law firm in October 2009, over 18 months ago, to replace the Latham firm. And in fact, the last payment of fees to Latham was in September 2009. With respect to this grant money, David Wright, a retired partner at O'Melveny, has been representing as pro bono counsel the Autry ever since the application was filed, so there is no conflict of interest. Next, with respect to the issue of the notice for the Park and Recs Commission of May 20th, you'll see attached to our letter a copy of the notice that your staff just told you about. It was a notice that was published, including published on the website, dated May 9th, 11 days before the May 20th hearing, providing notice that not only was the May 18th regularly scheduled meeting of the Parks Commission canceled for lack of a quorum, but also provided notice of the new hearing date, May 20th. Date of that notice is May 9th. It's attached to our letter, as well as a copy of the special board meeting agenda for the May 20th is also attached to our letter. Lastly, on the issue of CEQA compliance. As Mr. McKay has already told you, all of the work that's the subject of the Parks Commission decision will occur inside the Archer Museum building. It will not expand the footprint of the building one iota. So the only permit that is needed for this work is a building permit. And as you all know, building permits are ministerial and exempt from CEQA review. Indeed, as the city has always said, building permits solely for interior improvement work are exempt from CEQA.
Thank you.
So for these reasons, we urge you no on the Prop 245 motion.
Daniel Finley is our next speaker, and then David Burton will follow. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, council members. It's a pleasure to be in front of you today. As you've heard, this is a routine expansion. It is very fortunate that the Autry National Center has indeed been awarded this grant by the state of California, and we are going forward with what museums routinely do, and that is we expand and change our galleries from time to time. The correlation between this issue and the Southwest we think is unfair. As you've heard reported, fewer than 1% of the artifacts used in these changes will be coming from the Southwest Center. You've heard the city attorney indirectly and the park staff quite directly opine that there were no violations of any type of notification issues here. And as a matter of fact, an attorney who represents many of these groups in front of you today sent a letter to the state of California when they were considering this grant back in the months of March and April. And those charges, those objections that were raised were indeed rejected at that time. The notification of this grant that we received at the Autry was also noticed in the Los Angeles Times, hardly secretive in any stretch of the imagination. So we would like very much for you to oppose this matter today. The Autry is under the gun here with meeting a state-imposed deadline to have a contract in place, and any delay in that matter could very well jeopardize the $6.5 million for the Autry National Center, as well as the many jobs, the many well-paying jobs that this grant will provide to the great citizens of Los Angeles. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Burton. After that is Tom Lee.
Thank you, Council President and Council members. I was the person who was the grant writer for this particular project and met with the folks at the State Parks Administration a few weeks ago. Roughly 330 applicants applied to this particular grant project. Only 44 awards were made. They were made to exemplary projects that would broaden the state's ability to provide quality nature education programs to the citizens of California. As Chairman McKay said earlier, this project was endorsed by our State Senator Liu, State Assembly Member Mike Gatto, and the Speaker of the Assembly, John Perez. We applied by the deadline date of July 1. Awards were announced in April. This was a very deliberative and careful vetting process that the State of California did. In addition to the quality of the educational components of this project, we were awarded this grant based on some other factors as well. One is that our institution can serve a broad and diverse audience. 160,000 visitors from all over the county and city and county of Los Angeles attend the Autry every year. 50,000 of those are school children. Our hours of operation, 36 hours per week, was more than adequate for the state's review. Our physical accessibility to our site in Griffith Park is also exemplary, as people can arrive by car, bus, bicycle. And the state recognized the excellent infrastructure that's in place at the Autry, as well as its professional and capable staff. The state of California made it clear in their grant award that they want to invest in the city of Los Angeles, and they want to invest in the Autry National Center's Nature Education Project. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Lee is our next speaker. After that is Jacqueline Drager.
I defer to the previous speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Drager? Is there Jacqueline, excuse me if I'm mispronouncing it, Drager? No? Okay. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. Tina Galata Miller? And Jesse Rosas will be after that.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Councilman Reyes and Councilman Huizar for bringing this motion to the City Council. I'm asking that the City Council please pass this motion today to assert City Council jurisdiction over this matter. I am on the email notification list with the Department of Recreation and Parks, and I was not notified of this decision made by their board regarding the Southwest Museum. I am asking for a fair and transparent process that will lead to an open public hearing so the community has time for consideration and has the opportunity for public comment. The Southwest Museum issue is of the utmost importance to our Northeast Los Angeles communities, and we will continue to advocate for the rehabilitation and a future public access as a fully functioning museum in its original location on Mount Washington in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Rosas?
Good morning, President. Good morning, board members. I want to thank you, Councilman Reyes and Councilman Huizar, to do this in front of the public. And really, it is a 245 is very important for everybody right now. The reason we asking is because we believe the Southwest Museum has been 100 years old in that community, and that is a goal and is a jewel for our community. We believe that there's resources for our community, right, to go outside the city. I just want to remember something that Councilman Jose Huizar mentioned about heritage, legacy, and the Councilman Reyes mentioned about children's education. This is what it's about, education, legacy, and our Southwest Museum is important to keep it in place and open the doors for the public as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of 30 minutes. We have 6 cards left. I think if we maybe did a minute for each, if there's no objection, we could get everybody in. Is there any objection to that? Okay, we'll set the clock at 1 minute. Thank you for your understanding for the last 6 speakers. Carmela Gomez is our next speaker. And then we have Highland Park Heritage Association, but no name next. I don't know who filled that one out. It just says Highland Park Heritage Association.
Hello, my name is Carmela Gomez. I'm president of the Highland Park Heritage Trust. My purpose in speaking to you today is to urge this council to pass this motion to assert jurisdiction over the matter of the ill-advised action of the Board of Recreation and Parks Commission relative to the authorization to replace exhibit spaces of the Southwest Museum in Griffith Park. With all due respect, I'm on the early notification list and for more meetings than I care to example, but I was not notified, and I'm looking forward to having that type of hearing to this matter. We are at a crossroads once again in the process of restoring the dignity of the historic Southwest Museum in its present location. Thank you for voting for this.
Thank you very much. Nancy Wyatt. So that is Marie Leung.
Nancy Wyatt, Historic Highland Park.
I want to point out to you that you cut 40 seconds off the previous time when you started over again with your time. I just beg you, we all beg you, to give us our rightful opportunity to have community input. This museum is the keystone of our early history in Highland Park. We have a trilogy that we're proud of. We have a trilogy that attracts the students and their parents to Highland Park. And you will, each of you council members have received a copy of the program for our Lummus Festival, which is coming up this coming Sunday. I think that if you look through that page by page, you will see the organizations our community has, and you will also see that there were many, many opportunities for educational activities at that festival. And also, I want to point out to you that there is a historic timeline in there that is wonderfully done, the early history of the Northeast, and 7 neighborhood councils are supporting this project. Thank you to our 2 council members who also are supporting it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Marie Leung is our next speaker, and then Tricia Gossett. I just wanted to enter in the record Lisa Priester's name as well, though she did not want to speak.
Yeah, I'm Marie Leon. I'm a resident of Mount Washington. I live right by the museum. And I urge you all to vote yes on this motion. I want to thank Councilman Huizar and Ed Reyes for putting this motion forward so we could vote on it. I do urge a yes vote so a proper hearing could be heard on this issue. I feel this museum, a beautiful historic museum, I don't know how many of you have been up there to visit it, but it's also very easy to get to. We have buses and our GO line that stops right by it, and we just need a proper hearing on this. This is going on too long, and I hope every single one of you will vote a yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last card is Tricia Gossett.
Good morning. I'm Trish Gossett, and I'm on the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council. I want to thank Mr. Reyes and Mr. Huizar for understanding that this motion is very important, and I hope that you will support them in passing it. Yesterday, we had a great Memorial Day service in Highland Park, and I understand it was the most successful Memorial Day event that the square had ever seen. I look at this as being indicative of the progression of Highland Park, with our citizenry really devoted to preservation, restoration, and being able to historically document, where we have been and in the city. And I want to thank them for supporting us, and I hope that you will support them and vote yes on this motion. Thank you.
It's just the last attempt. Was there anybody who didn't put their name down but was part of the Highland Park Heritage Association? Okay. If not, that is the last card. Our next speaker in the queue is Mr. Cardenas.
Yeah, if I could have the staff come up, I have a question. Should the council successfully pass this 245 motion, will the council engaging in the process of accepting this grant, would that process in and of itself jeopardize the grant?
Yes.
How so?
There's a timeline for the Arch Museum to process all the paperwork for this grant, and I believe that's July 1st.
Okay, July 1st. But as we're well aware, the person who spoke, Councilmember Labange, spoke and said that he preferred that we not 245 it. He chairs the committee. He could actually hear it legally and appropriately notify and hear it next week, and we could have it on the floor next week. So we would be well within the first week of June or the first 10 days of June and be done with the council process. Now, having heard that, do you think that it would still jeopardize the grant?
Yes, I do, and we can have the representatives from the archery better explain it. But the way we see it is this, is that the
while you're speaking, can the representative of the archery please come forward? Because I want to know technically speaking, if that will jeopardize the actual grant.
There's two things. One, even if the council does send it to Arts Parks Committee, it would also have to come back before the Recreation and Parks Board again. And also,
it would, even if we didn't have any changes?
Because, well, it all depends on what comes out of the hearings, if it goes back to the committee.
So I understand, and I respect you a lot. You're very smart and you're very sharp, but at the same time, you need to qualify that answer. If we make changes, then it would have to go back to the commission.
Correct.
If we just vote it straight up or down and bring it back to the floor here and then vote it straight up or down, it would not have to go to the commission, correct?
Correct. But the thing is this, though. First of all, there's two things. One is that this was not required to come before the council as part of the recommendation that was before our board, because this was just for our board to vote for the changes that are to happen through this grant. The other thing is this, is that I understand about the public comments that you've just heard, there are a lot of comments regarding the Southwest Museum. The state has made this grant available to the Arts Museum, not the Department of Recreation and Parks, and they have made the approval as to what is part of this grant. For the public, for the comments, I kind of get the impression that the public think that they're going to be able to make changes to what's already been approved by the state in the grant, and I do not believe that is the case. I think that this would probably jeopardize the whole grant for the Arts Museum. So that's why they have these timelines, and what was before our board was to approve for them to be able to make the changes that have been granted to them and approved by the state.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make it clear, I've never seen a 245 I didn't like, but I'm not about to vote for a 245 if it truly is going to jeopardize something like a grant, whether the grant is $5,000 or in this case $6.6 million. But so I'd like to get a clarification as to whether or not it would actually literally jeopardize the grant.
It certainly will.
I'm sorry, your name and title again?
My name is Daniel Finley. I am the President, Chief Executive Officer of the Autry National Center. It certainly will if this body does not act in a timely way. If you are able to go through your steps, then indeed it might indeed be okay with the state of California, but we are up against a shot clock with the state.
And the shot clock, you concur that is the end of June?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And then you need to get your paperwork to the state, et cetera, signed and dotted and all that stuff. And so now whether or not we ended the process today, you do have enough time, as far as you can tell?
Yes, sir.
If we ended the process by the end of next week, do you think you would still have enough time to do your paperwork?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that clarity.
Mr. Reyes is our next speaker.
Thank Councilman Cardenas for that line of issues and questions. Colleagues, for me, the discussion is about goodwill. It's about goodwill on a community who really feels that it needs to be heard. Now, I sit on the committee with Councilman Labange. He does chair that committee. But I also, my district is across the street from the Southwest Museum. And I share that boundary with Councilman Huizar. But from what I'm hearing, is that we can move diligently and offer what I'm hearing the public say is a chance to speak to a government body because it felt like it did not have the opportunity before. Whether that's factual or not, we're here today. My recommendation, colleagues, is that Councilman Labange would like to consider, because we all talk about goodwill, we talk about public process, transparency. By putting this 245 in front of us, if we can move diligently and provide that opportunity to speak to the chairman, to this committee that we sit on in Arts Health, and if indeed the effort here from the body of public that are here is about fair access, fair hearing, then I don't think they want to jeopardize $6.6 million for the good of the city. I'm not hearing that. Whether they want to take it there or not, they'll have a right to say it. But I think right now, our city is hurting. We need to figure out how to establish resources, how we improve our relationships in this very, very emotional issue. But if, Councilman Labange, would you consider a way out by offering that goodwill so that they could have that committee knowing that we need to move this back to council before the deadline. Would that be something you would consider? Thank you.
Mr. Alarcon is our next speaker.
I don't have any idea what the substance of the issue is, but I don't. The substance of the issue is not the grant and the locations and all that stuff. The issue before us is whether or not we provided the access that Mr. Reyes described. My question has to do with there's been the allegation that many of the people and many of the people who are present normally receive notice of a commission meeting through email. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Now, some of them are saying that they did not get notice of this meeting, even though they had previously received email notice of other meetings. Is that correct?
We'd have to check with ITA. On our end, for the Department of Recreation and Parks, we did everything by the time.
No. I'm not asking that question. I'm only asking if they received notice by email or if some of them were deleted for whatever reason.
We went through the process that we always do. And so, as I stated, we did everything on our end for the Department of Recreation and Parks. If people did not receive notice, as they have stated, then that's something we would have to check with ITA to see if something happened technically in the system. But we did everything we were supposed to on our end.
Okay. I know you're answering a question, and I say this many times, but you're answering a question I didn't ask. I'm only asking about emails, because the Brown Act is not the issue here. The issue is whether or not we want to push the edge to ensure that...
No.
Can you hold my time, please?
There were no emails sent out for the meeting.
Wait a minute. Mr. Chair, can you hold my time, because they were having a conversation while I was speaking to them, and I don't think they heard my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please.
Marcia Gonzalez-Kimbrough in the City Attorney's Office. I have been informed by staff of the Recreation and Parks Board this morning. They have confirmed that although Rec and Parks staff provided all of the notice requirements that are required by the Brown Act, which is posting the agenda, the Rec and Parks staff provide the agenda to ITA staff to post on the early, what some people refer to as the early notification email list. It is an IT, for some reason, it was not posted by ITA for the last 3 meetings of the Rec and Parks Commission.
Okay.
So that's two meetings in May, including this meeting that was continued from the 18th until the 20th, and also the note, they've just discovered this morning that the notice for the June 1st meeting of this week, the continuation till June the 6th was not emailed. The posting in compliance with the Brown Act did occur. Okay. The agenda and the agenda packages were posted more than 24 hours on a special meeting, which is
okay. So the issue is not whether or not there was a violation of the Brown Act, because the Brown Act was complied with. The question is whether or not we want to fully inform people, even beyond the Brown Act, and I'm with Mr. Reyes on that. It's not an issue of, like I said, I don't even know what the issue is. But what I do know is that a lot of people didn't get the notice that they had been getting normally, and they had come, it had been the pattern and practice to receive these notices. They didn't get them, so they didn't think anything was wrong or there was anything going on. And I think that if we truly want to adhere to the issue of public access and transparency, then we need to allow them to have that opportunity, and that's why I believe that it is more leaning toward an open democracy to vote in support of Mr. Huizar's motion.
Thank you. Mr. Zine.
I've heard this matter brought up before the council a number of times. I've never been there. I don't know what's there, but I do recognize, being a native of this city, that when people come to council and express their concerns, and oftentimes are criticized for not listening. I've listened to what you have to say, and I'm going to support the 245 motion because the folks that are here are telling me that it's an issue for them and their community and their concern, and that means something to me. So I'm going to support it. I'm going to support the motion by my colleague, Mr. Huizar, and Mr. Reyes, on behalf of the people of the community, whether it's the neighborhood council or just plain residents that are concerned about this museum that has been controversial, and it's been brought up in discussion here for a long time. And hopefully we can finally come to a resolution that will be satisfactory to the city, Rex and Parks, to the museum, to the residents itself. And I do hope to visit it someday and be the name of this city. There's a lot of things I have seen, and some things I haven't seen, and that's going to be on my list to visit. So congratulations. You have had an impact on my vote of supporting you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to just appreciate Mr. Cardenas asking the questions about the timeliness. But one of the things I was wondering, if there is an additional hearing, are the issues going to be materially different than what people said today?
Not that I believe. As I've stated, I just wanted to just state, we hear the public and we hear the council members' comments, and if the will of the body here is to have this go before, I guess, the Arts Parks Committee meeting, I guess that could occur next week, and it seems that from the Arts Museum that still would allow them to meet the timeline. However, I just was stating that I do not believe that that will change what has already been approved by the state, what's in the grant.
No, not approve the grant. I'm just wondering, would the meeting be structured differently to where what would they be discussing at the meeting? Is it the configuration of how the grant will be used? Is it the outlay of the grant? Is it the construction of the new facility or whatever? What will be the item of discussion for an arts park? Because we've heard today there were those who heard, didn't hear, there's those who support, do not support. But what would be crafted to discuss at a committee meeting that would be different than what we've heard today?
I'm not aware of anything that would be any different. What is in our board report and what is in the grant will be the same items that would be presented even if there's a meeting next week with the Arts Parks Committee.
Okay. So let me ask Mr. Labange, would it be your impression that if this was sent back, that the committee report or the report from Rec and Parks would be the primary document that people would have the ability to discuss and bring up points of view, or what would be
on this issue here? And in discussing some matters with council, with the president, I want to check with the court, the clerk, to see if I could have a special meeting, because every day matters. I look at each and every one of your faces and know you have special things in your district that they go out and get grants. I think of the Children's Museum, which sits there in Hanson Dam area off of Foothill. I look at Alvera Street. I look at each and every one. And unless we get specific direction for the city attorney, I think it's real important what we put on the agenda as it relates to this.
No, I agree. That's what I wanted to make sure, that if you're going to have a special and go through all that organization, what is it that's going to be on the agenda different
the
than
$6.6 million grant. Acceptance of the grant, period. The same thing that's on that agenda, which unfortunately wasn't notified. And also, I think, Mr. Parks, we should have some strict decision on whether an email is absolutely required if it's not required by the Brown Act, because other times we know there's issues that come up in each of our districts where you're running to catch a freight train, so you go through the legal process, but you don't go through this modern community process now through the internet.
Well, I just want to make sure that if we go in that direction, that is time well spent and that we're actually going to get to the meat of the issue, so that when it comes back here, we're not going through the same process that we're hearing today.
Mr. Huizar.
Thank you, Mr. President. And first I want to clarify that looking at our own rules and regulations on Section 245, this will not jeopardize the grant in any way. The Section 245, as written in our rules, specifically states that we should have some type of solution within 21 days after we make a decision whether we want something to be Section 245 or not. And just given the fact that the strongest opponent to this Section 245 chairs the Arts, Parks, and Health Committee, I think he would be in his interest to move this as quickly as possible so as to not jeopardize the grant. So I want to take that issue off the table. That is not an issue at all what's before us today. And colleagues, it's very simple. If a group of people as large as the one you've seen today come before this body and they were your constituents and they tell you, we have not been heard, whether you agree with us or disagree with us, council member, we have not been heard. That is one of the principles of our democracy, to allow the public to be heard on items for which elected officials vote upon. It's very simple. At the end of the day, whether you're passionate about this or not, that's not what's before us today. I have my own views and opinions as to whether what happened there was appropriate or not. I have my own views and opinions as to what direction we should go with this issue, and I deal with it quite often because it's in my district. But it's very simple today. If you see the number of people who have taken time off from their work and their daily lives come here and say, City of Los Angeles, council members, give us an opportunity to be heard. That's the least we can do. So I ask for your support, for your courtesy. I recognize I don't often ask for Section 245 motions. There's a reason there's a required 2/3 vote from the council. The threshold should be of the level that we feel we need to put attention on this matter. This is one of those, because it's talking about the basic principles of democracy. I ask for your support. I do think we should move forward and move forward diligently, quickly, allow this due process to take place, and move on. Nobody wants to lose over $6 million for the City of Los Angeles, but we do owe it to our constituents to be heard. Very simple.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Mr. Huizar, I also know that we're going to have a special meeting on Friday morning. So how many hours do I need to tell people I have a special meeting, Mr. City Attorney?
24 hours.
24 hours? So it's 24 is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So how many hours that times 3?
Well,
very good.
Normally it's 72, but
right, over 72.
If you do it in the afternoon, you can even do it
So
as a
I will
regular
hear
meeting.
this in a committee on Friday morning, 8:45 a.m. Does that work for all of you who've come down? Okay. And also, we should clarify, and I always challenge the city clerk to make sure all public notice, because that's the big question that many of you raised, are appropriately served on this modern technology. But also, I know many people here don't like the archery. Raise your hand if you don't like the archery. Okay? You all went to 6th grade, 7th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade? No, it's all right, Tony. I got to say this, because we have to be honest to them of what has transpired over the years in this relationship between the Southwest and existing. The Southwest had $900,000 left. No, you can fill out a card if you want to speak. Good, very good. Got it. I got that. Thank you very much. But there's a relationship that has to come with all of this here. And what we're going to talk about is a grant, whether the grant works with the City of Los Angeles' program. And ask Rec and Parks to be there. Could you be there? Both of you on that? I will also at some time in the future love to have, because many of you I see, Joe Young comes to every meeting that I chair. Every meeting that I chair, Joe Young comes on behalf of the community, which is great. Some of you too. I think it's real important. But this long proactive struggle only gets solved when all people work together on this importance. Because even the neighbor, I just got to say this because you're all history people. Northeast Los Angeles. You're Northwest Los Angeles. First and Main is the actual location for all designation for geography. But there was a councilman of the 14th District who was in a tough race. And when they geographically identified police divisions, he went to call it Northeast because there was a Northeast newspaper chain in Highland Park, right? Because you're really Northwest. So history's real important to clarify. Just wanted to say that. as we go forward, but you're for always Northeast, because that's what someone made a decision, even though it really is Northwest, because Highland Park is northwest of 1st and Main. Highland Park is an important historic part of the city, and all of this is important. So we will hear this, Mr. Reyes, but I hope we hear it for what it is. And some of the other issues that you have, we could hear it another time. But this is as if there's an opportunity to enhance the educational experience for those who visit the Autry. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
I'll keep this short. I just want to say thank you, Councilor Labange. Thank you, Councilor Huizar. I just feel that at this juncture, we need to create goodwill. This is a good step. Thank you.
Thank you. So will we move this to committee, or how do we work forward?
First, we have to take a vote on asserting jurisdiction, so let's go ahead and take that, and then we'll do the referral if it does. We can't. You have to first assert jurisdiction, or else it runs out in a day, I believe. Please open the roll on asserting jurisdiction on the under 245 section of our code. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And that will be referred to Arts, Parks, Health and Aging Committee right away. So that will be scheduled at 8:45 on Friday in Mr. Labange's committee, the Art, Parks, Health and Aging Committee. Thank you all very much for everybody on all sides of this issue taking the time to be here. Next item called special, please.
Item number 3.
Okay. Item number 3 was we are ready to vote on. We have. Oh, sorry. We're supposed to continue 3 to. Let's continue it. We'll continue to a week from today, and we'll have it continued by somebody if necessary. Then, so it's June 7th, without objection. All right. And last item is item 10A. I've been informed is ready for a vote. Is that right, Mr. Krikorian? Mr. Krikorian, is that 10A ready for a vote? No, move. Okay. Okay. Please open the roll on 10A. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay. That is approved. And then we'll go to item 22 next. And that was called special by Mr. Reyes, who I know is out there. But in the meantime, give an announcement. Just want to let folks know that we have the E3 trade show coming here, Ms. Perry's district in Council District 9, the Convention Center, but there's an invitation to tour the E3 trade show for all council members at 9:30 this Saturday, June 4th. So if folks are interested, just please let us know, and we'll make sure the show's opening next week, but it's a preview tour, interactive games, video game consoles, handheld devices, personal computers, and the internet. So with that, Mr. Reyes, item 22.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you for your patience. Colleagues, this is a resolution to support SB 184. Essentially, it allows us, the state, as a matter of fact, to allow cities to implement local control, to impact and amend the government code that clarifies rules that allows residential development communities can expect to operate within jurisdictions that have a inclusionary housing program on the books. So in other words, it allows every municipality to have that flexibility to craft language that can allow for inclusionary mixed income housing within cities. So it essentially gives us that flexibility. It's another toolbox, another tool in the toolbox that provides that level of discretion. So I would encourage an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have cards on this. Paul Zimmerman is our first speaker. Arnold Sachs will follow. Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon. And Paul Zimmerman, Executive Director of the Southern California Association of Nonprofit Housing. I want to thank Councilman Reyes for presenting the opportunity to bring Senate Bill 184 to your attention. Very often, state law removes local control. I think this is a very special motion in that this bill actually returns power to the locality. As many of you may remember, an appellate court decision in 2009 put into question the use of mixed income ordinances at the municipal level, and this ordinance, this Senate bill would actually clarify that matter and return that power to the local venue. Affordable housing providers, community development organizations are particularly concerned that as we go forward with the Measure R build out of the transit system and create dozens of new transit stations, transit districts, that council will need every kit in the toolbox to get ahead of the curve on planning for that land use. And SB 184 restores a very valuable part of that toolbox. So I urge you to vote yes on the resolution, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. Appreciate it. Arnold Sachs, our next speaker. Then Armanak Norjanian.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Arnold Sachs. I was just curious when I originally put the card in to find out if this action by the council reflects on any of the action you took on item number 9, which was the changing of the rent stabilization ordinance. But actually, after listening to the last speaker, I have a question about how this would affect redevelopment agencies. But more importantly, with a transit-oriented development around new transit projects, it's, you know, the transportation situation in LA, people need to say, this is similar to when the water was brought to the city. This is an opportunity, transit is an opportunity to deliver a service just like water was delivered to the city. And if you recall in the history of LA that William Mulholland may have been a great Angelino, but he made a ton of money buying property up knowing the water was going to come to LA. Similar situation with transit. We have transit fools sitting on MTA's board, but there's a ton of money to be made in transit-oriented development because A, they know where the routes are going to be, B, they can buy the property under phony corporations, and C, they make the decisions that allow them to collect on both ends. So yeah, I have concerns when I hear that the city is going to take control over efforts for transit-oriented development, because I have real concerns about the fact that the poor leadership that we have at MTA is going to be getting their hands on billions of dollars in Measure R funding.
We'll close our public comments on this. Mr. Parks is next.
Thank you, Mr. President. Jerry, could you come up and explain to us from the CLA's perspective on what are the main issues on this legislation?
Hello. Oh, thank you. This is permissive legislation. It doesn't mandate anything. Now, we have not done a report on this, but in essence, what the legislation would do, one of the problems with inclusionary zoning is the Costa-Hawkins Act, which essentially says that after units built after 95, you cannot restrict the rental rates on those units. What this legislation would do would be to enable the council, if it so chose, to enact an ordinance establishing inclusionary zoning, and it would allow you then to control the rental rates on those affordable housing units within the inclusionary zoning program.
Okay, but now any property that's built before 95, we would have had that. Did we have that ability during that period before that mandate by the current legislation?
Well, if it fell within the rent stabilization ordinance, but again, that is different.
But that would have been 78 for rent stabilization,
right? But that's different than the controlling for affordable housing units.
Okay, but I mean, would we have had this authority on units that were built before 95?
You know, I would have to check. It's clear that you don't after 95. There was an appeals court decision that found, in fact, that you could not regulate the units, and that's one of the things that this legislation is intended to correct. Okay, we do have housing here as well. I'm told that it does cover the
We have housing. And the other thing I'd like to know is that how the recent Palmer case reconciles with this legislation.
Well, this legislation is intended to address the Palmer case. It would specifically allow for the controlling, for being able to control or legislate the rental units and inclusionary zoning.
So the Palmer case basically said we did not have the authority, and this legislation is saying we do. Because they use the current legislation as preventive and causing them to be forced to do inclusionary.
Yeah, it gives you that authority should you choose to establish an inclusionary zoning program.
Okay. Let me ask housing. Okay.
Marisol Romero with the Housing Department. Council member, to address your original question about pre-Costa-Hawkins, it is true that before Costa-Hawkins, before 1995, cities did have the authority to implement inclusionary zoning. In fact, when Costa-Hawkins went into effect in 1995, there were approximately 60 cities in the state of California with inclusionary housing programs implemented at the time.
Okay. And how does that inclusionary zoning prior to 95 reconcile with our current rich stabilization that's in the city?
Those are two separate things. Inclusionary zoning actually is means tested. The units are set aside for people at a certain income level for a prescribed amount of time.
Within a larger building?
Exactly.
Okay.
And a jurisdiction can set aside a percentage of the new units built as inclusionary housing. With rent control, there's no means testing. The units are not set aside for a period of time, and tenants are protected from displacement by having their rent stabilized over a period of time.
Prior to 95, would units that were inclusionary automatically become part of the rent stabilized number of units in the city?
No, those are separate.
Totally separate.
Completely.
So you set them aside, but for inclusionary, but you did not set a standard as to the rent increases.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, one last question. Go ahead.
Okay.
Last one.
Let me just ask that issue of 95. What's the issue there in the sense of saying on this, does that now open it up for property from 95 until eternity, or is there a line in which you draw after 95?
Well, in 1995, the intent of Costa-Hawkins was to allow landlords to set the initial rental rate of any tenancy.
Okay.
So it doesn't impact inclusionary zoning. Those are
But
separate.
what about this legislation?
Oh, I'm sorry, that was two, Mr. Park. Just press the button again, don't worry.
And I have a 1A.
All right, Ms. Perry.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. Well, either one of you, I guess, probably to Mr. Miller. Normally, we have a staff report giving us an impartial analysis on what our city position should be with a recommendation, and I don't think there's a staff report on record today. Is there any possible way you can give us at least a superficial analysis of what the Chief Legislative Analyst's Office would, how they view this and what you might recommend?
Sure. It's a permissive law. Mm-hmm. So in 99.9% of the time, I will recommend supporting a law that gives you the flexibility to do something. Mm-hmm. So on that basis alone, I wouldn't see a reason to recommend against wanting to have the authority to be able to do this. In terms of the substance of it, I know that inclusionary zoning is a major policy issue that needs to be dealt with. This doesn't mandate the creation of a program. It provides the flexibility of implementing the program should you choose to do it. So on my initial look, I can't see a reason why we would oppose it.
Okay, on a superficial look?
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Colleagues, this is, from my point of view, this is about local control and giving the city's ability to address their housing needs. The notion of how we move forward is about establishing enabling language that addresses some real hardships and needs in our city. There are 65 jurisdictions currently and state organizations that are urging a yes vote on this vital tool to house our workforce. The City of LA, and then I'm just reading some of the background issues here. The City of LA is not keeping pace with the housing needs of all people of all income levels. Based on the city's 2006-2014 Regional Housing Needs Assessment, RHNA, the housing production goals for 2009 were 1,602 very low units and 1,029 low-income units. In 2009, however, the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund only financed 423 units that were very low and 67 units of low-income households. So this is about our capacity to perform locally, to look at our strategies, to do consensus building, but more importantly, how we start answering the question, where will our workers live? If we want to invite businesses, if we want to invite the type of productivity that creates jobs, we need a workforce that can have a place to live. And currently, that is not happening. So we need to change that environment. So I would encourage an aye vote. We can go further into a further analysis on this, but this is about enabling language, local control, and creating more capacity to have the kind of flexibility that allows us to create housing for our constituents. Thank you.
Ms. Perry.
I would like to, if Mr. Reyes would agree, I do want further analysis. I'm not particularly comfortable with today without having the analysis on the record, but do you think that we could get something in, 30 days, something like that?
Oh, certainly less than that.
Okay. And then I know we'll take a vote today.
Great. Yeah, because it's on the floor in Sacramento now.
Yeah.
Committee process.
Okay, well, then can you report back? Where is it in the committee process?
I believe it's in the Senate. So I think they have time constraints.
Okay, how quickly do you think it'll move there?
We can do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, if they maybe you could get 2 weeks or less to give us an analysis on the record. If you could get us analysis on the record, Mr.
I'm told the bill needs to be out of committee by Friday.
Oh, okay. Today's Tuesday.
We
do have some preliminary analysis on hand.
We do.
It's on the Senate floor on Friday, not even.
Okay. Can you get something done by Friday?
Sure.
If you continue to Friday, we can have something back to you for Friday's meeting.
The vote on Friday.
Yes.
Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, yeah, that would be better.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Okay, so we're going to have it on Friday.
So we need to vote today?
Yes, we need to vote today.
Okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Reyes has the motion before us. Anybody else wishing to be heard? If not, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
8 ayes, 3 noes.
Okay, that is approved. All right. And next order, forthwith, sorry, on that, okay. Next order of business, please.
Council has motions for post and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
There's the excuse in the desk. Councilmember Huizar requests to be excused on July 15th for city business, and that meets council policy.
All right, he's excused.
That clears the desk.
All right, any announcements, colleagues? Announcements. Do we have any adjourning motions today? We do. Oh, announcement, Mr. Parks.
Advise the public on the very important issue of redistricting. There is a meeting being held tonight at 5:30 to 8:30. I'm sorry, tonight, May 31st, 6 to 8, at the Los Angeles DWP Crenshaw Auditorium, 4030 Crenshaw Boulevard in LA 9008. All those community members interested in this issue, this is the second of 3 community hearings on that subject.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Mr. Reyes?
Correct.
Yeah, forthwith on 22. Do we have adjourning motions today? Yes, if I can ask everybody in council chambers to please rise for our adjourning motions. And I'd like to recognize Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's with great sadness that I just learned of the untimely passing of one of the great leaders of the Los Angeles Orthodox Jewish community. Rabbi Beryl Weiss passed away this morning at age 85, a few days shy of his 86th birthday. Known as a tremendous philanthropist and pious leader, Beryl Weiss was well known as a supporter of Chabad institutions. He was very active as a philanthropist. He was born in a small town on the border of Hungary and Romania, was sent to learn in the yeshiva of Kosin. He survived Auschwitz during the war, but lost both his parents and several siblings. Two remaining siblings who lived in California helped him come to the U.S. Beginning a new life on the West Coast, Beryl bought a farm in Orange County and started producing the first commercial line of Cholav Yisrael products, which are dairy products produced under the supervision of a rabbi. He later went into the business of convalescent homes, which offer a home-like environment while patients recover from long-term illnesses or medical procedures. While he always had a love for learning, in later years, some 6 to 7 hours of his day were dedicated to Torah study in synagogue and at his home. Rabbi Weiss even had an open account in a local grocery store, which was always available to students of Torah and poor families. He is survived by his children Moshe Aaron Weiss of Sherman Oaks, Marty Weiss of Los Angeles, and Cheney Levitin of Seattle, as well as his brother Aaron Leibovitz Weiss of Los Angeles. His funeral will take place today at 2 p.m. at Yeshiva Or Elechanan Chabad at 7215 Waring Avenue in Los Angeles.
Thank you. Are there adjourning motions? If not, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? We'll next be in session tomorrow. That is the first day of June. Thank you for a great May. Have a good rest of the day. And this meeting, the Los Angeles City Council, is adjourned.